Back again to look at some of those whiskies and some of those distilleries, some of those producers that I am guilty of perhaps ignoring. Maybe you are too. I don't feel as I've done this series that it's just me who's kind of ignoring these distilleries. I feel like that generally in our community and the community that's built up around the vPub every week, we don't seem to talk about these ones very much. So there's probably a reason for that. There might be a reason for that. Maybe like previous editions of this ignored series in the past, we'll discover some some little hidden gems. You just never know. Anyway, I've got a few lined up to share with you tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Just looking for a sample that I can pour here because I realised that the sample I've had in my glass is just about to run out. So I'm going to pour a wee Ben Nevis into my glass. So I've got something to raise and say, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the vPub. Welcome to Thursday night. I hope you're all doing very, very well. It's fantastic to see so many of you in. I'll get to you just in a wee second. It's been a long time since I've done an ignored episode. I was supposed to keep this going, every quarter, every 6 months, something like that. And I would kind of collected or gone out and picked up some bottlings from producers that we tend not to talk about. This is not hidden gems. This is not under the radar distilleries. Under the radar distilleries are ones that you probably don't have many official releases from. Hidden gems are ones that are kind of out there and they're just loved and they do very, very good whiskies. And we talk about them quite regularly. What I'm talking about here are producers, distilleries that have official core ranges out there. Sometimes quite substantial, quite considerable core ranges, not just one, two, or three bottles, but a really quite decent lineup. And yet we still don't seem to, as enthusiasts, okay, absolutely, we're going to be banging on about enthusiasts and the things that we prefer all night tonight, no doubt, like we always do. But that's why we're here, and that's how we uncover, in my opinion, that's how we uncover the best experiences in whiskey, especially as the prices continue to climb. So tonight we're going to be looking at some of those distilleries, something that they at least have one official core range bottling out there. And in the case of some of the ones I'm going to look tonight, they have quite a few to choose from. So it's been tricky to decide which one to pick. That's the scope of ignored whiskies. I'll touch on it a wee bit later as I kick things off. But for now, I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Fantastic to see you all. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome once more. I do look forward to these wee sessions. I'm going to try and keep it to less than 2 hours tonight. I've got an early start tomorrow, and then a wee bit later in the morning I'm driving. So I've got 5 glasses, clean glasses set to the side here, plus this wee welcome dram I have. That's going to hopefully control my measures tonight and how much I consume on what is tonight a school night for me. Hope it's not a school night for you guys, and I hope if it is, that I don't keep you up too late blethering. And if I do, it's because I've been speaking about something interesting. Anyway, let's jump into the lounge and see how everyone's doing. Lee Jose's in saying, "Hi Roy, good to see you." Lee and Perth Sebastian is here. Perth, good to see you back. He's saying, "Good evening, Roy. Great to be here. Evening, Barflies." I'm calling you Perth, but I bet your name is Sebastian and you're just from Perth, right? Anyway, it's good to welcome you back. Good evening to you as well. Rob Smith is here saying, "Aquaviti." Good evening, Roy. Rob, I hope I've welcomed you before, but if I haven't and this is the first time, welcome, my friend. It's good to have you here. My friend Rob is here. Rob Halford, good to see you, buddy. I hope you're keeping well. No Rolex is here. Good to see you, buddy. Lee J. Brown, Hellswood. Good to see Lee J. and Helen. I hope Andy's doing well as well, Helen. Sandro Fazzolari is in. Good to see you, Sandro. I hope you're well, my friend. And my friend Stefan Novak from Germany is here too. I see your name there. I realise that I've still not committed to Limburg yet. I've got another thing that's so close to Limburg, and I need to make sure that I can make these two things work. It's going to be super tricky, but I had to do it. So I just need to fathom how to make Limburg work. That's the delay there. Gerben is in. Good to see you, Gerben. Nice to welcome you back, my friend. I hope you're well. Nice to see you again too. Ben Whiskey with Molly is here saying got Aquavita up on the big telly tonight. Quite the sight to behold. Oh no. I should have had more beauty sleep, Ben. A few people send photos through, and they've got these really quite huge flat screen TVs, and they'll watch YouTube through it like we do nowadays. And sometimes I see my big stupid head on the big screen. Aye, and it is quite the sight, right enough, Ben. Welcome in, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Savar Björgvinsson, that's my friend from Iceland, is here saying hello, Roy. Cheers from cold Iceland. I imagine it's colder over in Iceland, of course, my friend, but it's a wee bit chilly in Glasgow tonight too. So, but I don't imagine it's anything like it. We've just got a wee bit of ice and frost in the mornings and in the evenings. That's all. Mero's here, multi-mission. Good to see you. Hello, Roy. Ben Nevis, not ignored, but near invisible, alas. I did cover Ben Nevis in one of these previous series, but it's an absolute good call. The one I covered, I don't think I covered the 10-year-old. I think it was just the Quaralish. You might remember the non-age statement one that they released. James Hope is in. So good to see you, James. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. Oops, just jumped. There you are, back again. And he's saying good. He's saying hello to Rolf Ebhead, Jimmy Jazz over in the States, Max Kreitner in Austria. Fantastic, Rolf, Max, and Jimmy. Good to welcome you all in as well. And good to have James Hope in, as always. Reb Mordecai is here. Good to see you, Reb. I hope you're doing very well. He's saying good evening, as well as my friend Frank from the Netherlands. Pete Head, he's saying evening, Roy. Interesting topic again. Looking forward to yet another interesting vPub. I'll do my very, very best for you, Frank. I hope you're well. Gino Kumon, Canada, saying hello, Roy. Nice to see you. Hope you had a good week, buddy. I've had a hectic week. Honestly, Gino, it's been one of those weeks where despite trying to take and just fit in as much as I could, the efficiency levels seem to have been really low. So I'm delinquent with Patreon, I'm delinquent with emails, I'm delinquent with messages, welcoming patrons. I was delinquent with promoting this session tonight. I didn't even book it and arrange it until this morning. It's just been one of those weeks. Sometimes we have weeks that just kind of slip away from us. But I managed to catch up quite a wee bit today, so hopefully tomorrow and over the weekend, I'll get back to feeling like I'm on top of things again. It's just the way it flows sometimes. And Whiskey Franco is saying, evening, Roy. Good to see you, Whiskey Franco. I hope you're well. Scott Allen, my friend Scott, is here saying, good evening, Roy. Glad to be here. It's glad to have you here, Scott. Hey, Jimmy Jazz is saying good evening as well. And I've missed a couple of drams. I don't want to miss those. One's come in from my pal Jerry Miller in the States saying, thank you to you and all the Barflies for the birthday greetings last week. I was catching the replay and was both shocked and smiling ear to ear from the birthday wishes. Jerry, you're very, very welcome, and I hope you had a fantastic time. And thanks very much for the dram, my friend. There's no need for it, but many happy returns once more. Cheers. And Justin is dropped in as well with a wee dram for me. Justin over in Hong Kong saying, I'm heading to the UK in May. Hopefully I can buy you a proper dram or two then. That would be fantastic, Justin. What I tend to find these days is what's much more efficient for me is when there's a gathering or an event or something that I'm traveling to as well, and some of you guys are too, or the Glasgow Whisky Festival or whatever's happening around. It's much more efficient for me to meet so much more people. I keep mentioning this, but it's just worthwhile putting it out there for no other reason than just so everyone knows. Justin, please let me know your dates that you're going to be here. And if we can hook up for a dram, for a handshake, for a hello, whatever it may be, I'll do my very, very best. What tends to happen is I can't really know until closer to the time. If we're honest, there's usually always at least one or two barflies passing through Scotland at any one point in time. So it's become harder and harder for me to commit, especially when the family's so busy and things. Anyway, enough excuses. Justin, tell me what your dates are, and we'll do our very best. Anthony Lambert is here saying, Guten Abend, everybody. Pen and paper at the ready to note down all the whiskies I'm ignoring or not. Yeah, I don't think maybe you'll need a pen and paper. I don't think so. I think what we're going to do tonight is what I've found that was really interesting about doing this series. And the last one I didn't do any in 2022 at all, is that each distillery gave me a kind of a vehicle to talk about something else, something that's whether it's pricing, whether it's availability, whether it's distribution, whether it's presentation, whether it's cask, whether it's ABV and where we are in our journeys. All of these things we can weave in to the discussion around these individual bottles. And through doing that, I managed to uncover some things that I genuinely had been ignoring and should not have been ignoring. And I'll list what these are in a second. Some things that you've heard me talking about, and some of these examples, a lot. You've heard me talking about them a lot on the vPub. Now, am I going to discover some of that tonight? I don't know. We hope so, don't we? But there's also a responsibility on me to explore things that I'm going to hold up. I'm going to hold this thing in my hand and say, I don't want to buy this. Something is stopping me buying it because of where I am in my journey right now, because of my experience around whiskey. And I'm just not going to buy it. But I keep talking to you about somebody's got to be buying these things. And if we're going to say, no, we don't want this, one of us in the community, one of us has to be tasting it and saying, yeah, you're right. You're right. You don't want this. And then they can also step up and say, maybe you do want this, when it's actually something that's genuinely being ignored. Now, what's happening these days is we're all going after these natural products, this natural presentation. And that means that it's easy for us to discount swathes of whiskey that's out there, as enthusiasts, of course, because it's not given to us in natural presentation. We don't see it at 46% ABV, which may indicate that it's it's unchill filtered. It's not perhaps got a declaration of natural colour. All of these things that just kind of make us take a step back, especially if the price is a wee bit salty. So I have to step up there too, don't I? And I promised that I would. Towards the end of last year, I would continue to do that. And I would buy the whiskies that you're potentially not buying right now and tell you, aye, okay, this is one to leave for someone else, or this is something that we should maybe be connecting with. Lassie Hjort Oatsman, good to have you in, Lassie. He's celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 26 months. Incredible, Lassie. Thanks for your support. Anybody that is a Barfly, you just on desktop. If you're on Android, I think you can join as well. But on iOS, there's still an issue, a billing issue. They keep telling us they're going to sort it out. But you need to be on desktop if you're on iOS, you need to be on desktop to join the Barflies. You just click the join button there and you pay $1.99 a month of whatever your currency is, dollars, pounds, euros, whatever. And it means that I never have ads on the vPub or any of the Aquavitae content going forward. And in return, you guys get some nice little whiskey themed and channel themed emoji and things to colour up the live chat and to colour up the comment section, and also a wee loyalty badge, that kind of thing. But what you're actually doing is helping me keep YouTube, my presence on YouTube, completely ad-free, which I hope everybody benefits from. We don't need to sit through ads when we're watching this content. Thanks very much, Lassie, for being a member, and thanks to all of you fantastic, dedicated Barflies for helping to support the channel, of which Reb is one of them, saying Aquavitae. Many are put off by over-the-top use of E150A and the old Ballantruan 15, but it really is a gem. Now, I have an old Ballantruan, and I did buy it specifically for a vPub once, and it's one of the ignored ones I have here on the shelf. I go back to it every now and again, but that's interesting that you mentioned the old Ballantruan 15, Reb, and it's interesting you bring up the colour. You're not the first person to mention it to me, but you're the first person to mention that it's dosed a bit with colour. Peat Monster non-chill filter bottle at 50% ABV, perfect as the last dram of the evening. Okay, 50% presentation on it as well. And when he says Peat Monster, he's talking about the style of whiskey it is rather than Peat Monster, the brand. It's Compass Box, of course. Another good tip, Reb. We work together as a community to find these things, don't we? And Kilco Brian is saying, has it been over 2 years already? How time flies. He's celebrating being a member for 2 years. Terrific stuff. Thanks, Brian. So it looks like what happens is you get occasionally you get celebrating anniversaries and things, you get highlighted comments and things. And I usually, not always, but I usually do a good job of picking those up. Peter is saying, weekly update, only 88 likes out of over 320 in. Shame alert. I keep mentioning it, Frank. You're a hero. Thank you so much. But if people see likes on these videos, they realize that it's legitimate content. And I'm doing my very best to bring you the best content I can. So if people jump in and they see how many, look at, oh, okay, 5,000 views, whatever, and oh, it's had a lot of likes too, then it's legitimate content. So it helps a lot. And of course, it helps. Maybe YouTube will promote the vPub as well and put it into people's feeds when they're searching for whiskey content and things. So the likes do help a lot. If you feel like leaving a like, I'm even going to click in tonight and I'm going to like my own vPub. I'm going to make a commitment to all of you guys out there, all my peers, all my fellow YouTube creators and things like that, that when I watch your content, I will remember to leave, as a minimum, a like and a comment as well when I can. It goes a hell of a long way. Multi-Haggis Muncher is in saying good evening, all. Good evening, Roy. Hope you're all well tonight. Matthew, I'm doing very, very well. Listen, it's just me tonight. I'm going to be going through these whiskies. So if you do have comments and things, I will be dipping in and out and trying to pick them up and trying to interact with you as much as I can. But I do have a soft target of trying to get this done and dusted by midnight tonight. Let's raise a glass to that and see if I manage it. Carson is saying right now I'm having a Mizuwari Scotch and soda, wow, with some ultra fruity 8-year-old cast strength Glencadam. It's nearly gone. Urgently need a replacement. I was in a shop today, specifically for tonight's vPub, I have to say, and I had to stop distracting myself. There was so much choice in the shop. This week I've been down at Clydeside. I've been up at Royal Mile Whiskies in Edinburgh. I went into one or two other wee shops in the Royal Mile in Edinburgh as well. Went to Good Spirits Company in Glasgow, and every time I'm going in and going, okay, just get the whiskey that you can use on the channel. That's what you need to focus on. But it's tough right now because there are, even in January, traditionally the quiet month of the year, there are so many options out there. With all that choice, with all that noise, this is the most valuable community I can touch. It is fantastic for me because you guys are leading me as much as I'm leading you, as much as we're leading each other, all the other creators out there, all other voices, all other opinions, all the reviews and the opinions over on Dramface as well. We're all working together to tease out where the good stuff is. It's more and more important. So if we're going to leave stuff on the shelf, if we're going to walk in to our bricks and mortar shops and ignore certain sections, if we're going to click past things as we browse online, we need to know that we're not missing out good opportunities. I'm going to start tonight with something I've had before. And I have replaced a bottle of something that I didn't enjoy too much. I should have checked on the recycled review to see what I'd scored this thing, but I seem to remember that I wouldn't have scored it particularly high. If I was scoring it now based on my memory of this bottle, I think it would be in the order of 6 to 6.5, honestly. Why have I bought it again? Well, it's been on the list for a wee while. I added this to the list of ignored distilleries. It's something that I need to explore. There are independent releases of this whiskey, and they tend to be pretty decent. And if you're going to enjoy this distillery, it would be my recommendation typically to say ignore the official releases and try and pick it up from an independent. This is a dusty bottle, so I'll reach for my wee duster here before I reach it up to you. But if I hold this up to you, it's strange and it's stable. It's from Dewars, Bacardi is the owner, and this is probably one of their weakest lineups, along with what they released from Macduff under the Glendeveron banner. This is Aberfeldy, a Southern Highland distillery. Now, I've had a few Aberfeldies over the years. I'm going to try and just hold this and tempt this camera to focus on this so you can see. It's quite an attractive presentation. It's quite a good looking bottle aesthetically. But if we look at the true presentation for us, everything is a warning sign. This is 40% ABV. So automatically we know, we can assume And absolutely, when we're talking about malt whiskey, 99% of the time we would be right to assume that it's chill filtered at 40%. Absolutely is. It's got a 12-year age statement on it, which is a healthy age statement. Um, and no other information at all that helps us discern whether it's natural color or anything. Obviously, we assume that this type of product for this type of consumer and this type of market, you can see is going to be probably reliant on E150A coloring as well. If you consider even first fill bourbon products, when it's natural color, it's noticeably paler than that, even at 10 and 12 years old, most of the time. Some very active casks can change that, of course. And that's obviously assuming that it's all going to be bourbon cask in this. But I would suggest that, they're probably using a mixture of casks here. Mostly American oak, of course, mostly bourbon, but they may have an occasional wee American oak sherry cask or whatever thrown into the mix as well. But this is Aberfeldy's core entry level product. This is 40 to 42 pounds recommended retail, but you can get it regularly under £40, regularly down at £30 that order on offer. This is their kind of bulk whiskey offering. Why have I bought it? Well, when people are able to buy whiskies in supermarkets and people are able to buy whiskies from distilleries that they've never tried before, it's going to be this type of thing that they buy. In the range, there's other age statements in there. I've had the 15, the 16, I've had the 21-year-old as well. 21-year-old was a gorgeous whiskey, but always left me wanting because of that low ABV, which is criminal for a 21-year-old whiskey, I believe. So I've bought it again because I'm going to score Aberfeldy off this ignored list, and I'm going to talk about why I think it should be me that's buying this whiskey and not you. This whiskey now has to work very, very hard to change our mind, don't you think? We're looking at this. This is the bulk of malt whiskey that's sold today is presented exactly like this. Even today in 2023, by considerable margin, millions and millions of litres of malt whiskey is sold, presented exactly like this. I have tasted malt. A good pop, splashes everywhere. From Aberfeldy Distillery that I have truly loved. So all my comments tonight will not be about the malt that they make at Aberfeldy Distillery. It will be comments that's made about what they do with the mature stock at the point of making it, preparing it for the market. That's the disconnect right across whiskey. That's when enthusiasts are let down. I guarantee you there's going to be dozens and dozens of people. Curved shoulders, so there's no glug from this whatsoever. There's going to be dozens of people up and down the country and right across the globe potentially that's having a valid experience with a wee bottle of Aberfeldy, whatever the bottling is, 12-year-old, one of the other releases. There's two 12-year-olds out there right now. There's a standard 12-year-old and there's something called the Golden Dram or something. It's the exact same whiskey, just packaged ever so slightly differently. Glennis Maid is in saying, I posted on the Facebook page today about an HP 15 Viking Heart. I don't like Highland Park usually, but if they can do that, why don't they? Very on topic. Highland Park, I haven't, it's very much on the ignored list, honestly speaking, because I'm not talking about, people love Highland Park. It's a very successful distillery. But in our community, it's it's not really marketed towards us, and there's not many expressions. There are not many expressions that are kind of what we would enjoy. So we tend to skip past it. But I have touched upon it when I talked about cast strength releases, because for me, if I was going to pick up an official Highland Park, I think I would be drawn to that cast strength release. But Glennis Maid, thank you very much for your dram, and thanks for pointing out and participating in the Barflies page on Facebook. Cheers to you. Hmm. Okay. Barflies page on Facebook is a busy little page. By the way, anybody, it's a gorgeous community. People are really polite, really welcoming, really supportive and helpful with each other. We hope to protect that as long as we possibly can. So if you're active on Facebook, give it a wee look. Scott Allen is saying, I see Aberfeldy on sale at Costco, but I never buy it because of the low ABV. That's absolutely spot on. And I think that's so true to so many people, Scott. Falsgraph is saying there is still so many good opportunities that I never get. So many good opportunities that I never get FOMO attacks. My bucket list is full enough to not suffer from emissions. Also, always kick, no color, non-chill filtered. So there you go. Falsgraph is making it easier to reduce his fear of missing out on certain things, certain distilleries. And if a distillery is going to put something out, all of their range, they've got maybe half a dozen different expressions out there, and they're just going to make it all diluted, neutered, dosed with colour. Deceitful? Is that too far? Maybe too far to suggest that. We have to remember a lot of the dynamics that exists in whiskey. But honestly, for me, aye. If that's not the colour of this whiskey, and you just take some really quite gross product like caramel E150A, it's horrible stuff, and then you just dose it with that, that's deceit. Anyway, we're not going to focus on that too much today. If we are ignoring whiskies like this poor wee Aberfeldy, let's justify it. Let's talk about why. David Hong is saying, here, you missed a super chat from Ben Stahl. No, I could not have. My friend Ben. My goodness. Was it maybe before I went live tonight? I'm really sorry. Ben, no, it's there. Thank you. Heroy, did you get my email about visiting Scotland? Ben, I may have your email about visiting Scotland. At the start of this, I spoke about how crazy a week I've had over the last few days. And I'm delinquent with email, Patreon messages, Patreon welcomes, everything. I'm just so behind on everything. Ben, my friend, if the fact that you're coming to Scotland, that's amazing. I will get to it and I'll respond to you over the course of the next day or so. I apologise, I am ridiculously behind. And when you get behind, it becomes quite a scary monster and intimidating to tease through. Ben, thank you for your drama, friend. I look forward to having the opportunity to welcome you here. Cheers, buddy. I've had the chance to bump into Ben a couple of times over in Texas, but never this side of the Atlantic. So who do I need to say thanks to? David Hong bought me a super dram to point out that I'd missed a super dram or a super chat from Ben. David, thank you so much. Cheers. Very generous and giving me a chance to sip heavily and just remind myself of what we have here. I'm not reviewing anything tonight. I can't really honestly review. I'm not going to get into tasting notes. I'm not going to. Bottles tend to need to be open for a wee while to open up. But that tends to be more valid for things of higher ABV, things that are a wee bit more naturally presented. For things at 40% and things like that, these are bottled and prepared and presented to pop and drink, ready to go. And first couple of sips out of this, that especially the more experienced ones around the community, you know exactly what I'm tasting from this. You can hold a whiskey like this in your hand, you know where it's from, you can read the label and know how it's presented, and you can get a very, very good idea exactly how it tastes, and I think that's a shame. Deceitful is a bad word to use, it really is, but there is some deceit with a lot of the bottlings out there. There is also another word that we can use, and that is a wee bit overly fettled, overly played with, concocted, engineered, however you want to talk about it. If you were sitting down and in company and drinking this whiskey, you would enjoy it. You would enjoy it and you'd be quite happy to drink it and pour another glass. You wouldn't be tasting it though. You would be drinking it. That's the difference. There's nothing in this whiskey to distract you. There's nothing in this whiskey for you to appreciate just how good a malt is made at Aberfeldy, I believe. It's just so soft. So toffee, caramel and honey. So maybe a wee bit heathery, maybe a light floral side to it. Maybe that's exactly it. It's very generic malt whiskey. I know that Aberfeldy don't necessarily make that style of whiskey. That's what's been put in this bottle to fit this market, I guess. So here's what I'm going to do. No surprises here. For the first dram tonight, I thought I had a little measure with, but I've probably forgotten it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to just pour a wee bit more. A wee bit more into the glass, okay? I'm going to sacrifice some whiskey here. I'm going to reach out. Now, I've got a Douglas Lane Providence that I picked up from Good Spirits Co., which is an 8-year-old, I think, at 46% ABV. That would work for this experiment. But I've also got on hand, I've got an Aberfeldy here from this from a no-nonsense whiskey, a 6-year-old Aberfeldy. Now look at the ABV on this one as well, if it focuses, 59.8% ABV. So we're close to 60% ABV. If I mix equal parts of this whiskey with that whiskey, we're going to bring it up to 50% ABV. Now, we're not going to replace any of the, fatty acids, any of the esters, anything that's been lost, any of the mouthfeel or texture or flavour that's been lost through chill filtration. Of course not in this measure here. And we're certainly not going to strip out any of the colour that's been used. But we are going to move it towards something. I am halving the age here, by the way, because this is a 6-year-old I'm pouring into a 12-year-old. Half and half? I don't know. Close enough. If I'd remembered the little measure, I don't know. I had it in my hand. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it to the side and hope that I remember before the end of the broadcast tonight to go back to it and see if that very young, very sprightly, very vibrant 6-year-old from No Nonsense Whiskey has done anything to bring this back. I'm not recommending that you go out and buy 2 bottles of whiskey to do this at home. Please no, I am never going to recommend such a thing. It's folly. However, if you do find yourself with things like this, things that aren't moving, the ignored that you have at on your own collections and your own shelf at home, by doing this, you're blending at home, but you're not blending. You're marrying, you're mixing, we still have a single malt in this glass. Still single malt whiskey, because everything is from the same distillery. So let's push that off to the side. Let it sit for a wee while. Let it marry. If you were going to do this at home seriously, I would be tempted to do it on a slightly bigger scale and scale things up but give it time. Give it time. These things tend to work better with time. Mixing them, giving it a swoosh and tasting it, they tend to sit on top of each other for a wee bit. It's weird how that can happen. Sandro is saying Royal Brackley usually bottles like Aberfeldy, but they did come out with a 12-year-old Oloroso. I spoke about it. Sandro on the vPub was celebrating that whiskey. That was it was a bit much more expensive. It went up into the 50-odd pounds, but Royal Brackley was it was a sherry finish as well, a 12-year-old 46% ABV, where they did present it much more naturally. I hope that was a success. Although it has disappeared from the shelves a wee bit, I haven't searched for it online recently. It came out at a similar time in 2020. It came out at a similar time to the Glenturret revival. So when we were really wanting our sherry hit, Glenturret, certainly for me, took my attention. MJ Rodney saying Bacardi are so strange that they have Craigellachie, Aultmore, Brackla on one side of the ABV and then have their others. I guess their marketeers see gaps in the market to fill. I put it to you, you and I are fully agreeing on this. You take the words right out of my mouth, MJ, because for me, rather than dedicate a whole line of your distillery to diluted, anemic, minimum ABV, dosed with colour, right up to the 21-year-old age statements, rather than do that, why don't you just put 1 or 2 entry-level bottles presented like that? Or just some of the range, and bring out other releases in the range that are fully natural. If you are worried about putting statements like unchill filtered on some and not on others, please don't worry. Most of the market, as you keep telling us, don't care. They don't care. So they won't care. But we will care, and you're pleasing both. What is difficult about transparency? Don't have us relying on looking at 46% presentation, 48% presentation, and us kind of just deducing that, oh, okay, we hope it's chill filtered. Because it's not. It is not chill filtered. If it says 46%, it's not chill filtered. If it says 46% and unchill filtered, sorry, I should say unchill filtered. If it says 46% and it says unchill filtered or non-chill filtered, or no chill filtration or any statement of that type on the label, then it's unchill filtered. Then it's natural. If you don't put it on the label, we have to assume that it is chill filtered. The more as time goes on, the more I'm realizing that that's exactly the case. More on that in the future, both here and on Dramface. Lowlander is saying that's a large dram. It has ended up being a large dram, Lowlander. I don't need to drink it all tonight. The wee sample bottles that I've been finishing here, I can top it up. I can just pour it into this and leave it for a wee while. Put it on, but I will sip it tonight before I finish up. Ryan Sutherland is saying, I've never bought an Aberfeldy other than an indie bottling, which is rare enough in itself. The low ABV is strange considering their other group offerings from Aultmore, Craigellachie, etc. Again, we're all on the same page here. Falscraft is saying, well, the other day I had a Glenmorangie tasting set. It was €32 for 4 times 10 CL. I was astonished how good they are. There's way better, of course, but it was okay for the price. I've often talked about how good Glenmorangie is. Even the 10-year-old at 40% is actually, to my palate, a very good whiskey. I love that lovely pineapple, very clean fruity note that we get from Glenmorangie. You know, the fact that they give us some nicer things with in their 12-year-old range, you know, La Quinta, sorry, not La Quinta, Quinta Ruban, La Santa, and the Nectar d'Or, although the Nectar d'Or doesn't, it seems to be at 43% again for some reason. I don't know why. Listen, I just don't understand a lot of the decisions that are made here. Is it economic decisions? Is it market demand? It's difficult for me to work it out. But there are strange things happening there. And we just need to roll with it. We don't really have any control, but we do have opinion and we do have purchasing power. And I think we need to be smart about how we purchase our whiskies. On first pass, this Aberfeldy, I know that I'll get through this. I'll be able to pour this for people. I'll be able to mix it. I'll be able to use it for different things. But this, I was right to ignore this once more. And I think there's nothing in this 12-year-old that kind of makes me want to reinvest in the higher age statements as well, because my memory of those were always that they were good whiskies. They got better as they got older, obviously. But they always left me wanting because of that low ABV. It's just not, there's not enough in it. It's not pointed at me, I accept that. But if I look at Aberfeldy now as an ignored distillery, ignored for me, ignored around the vPub, I was right to follow the indies. Going to pick up another one as well. Justin Wan is saying Aberlour is doing the opposites. They're putting out the non-chill filtered version of the 12-year-old instead. Fantastic. So let's use that, Justin, as a perfect segue into our next dram tonight. Aberlour. How often do you hear me talking about Aberlour on the vPub? That's incredible. I mean, it's one of Pernod Ricard's biggest distilleries. It's the biggest selling malt in France. It was a gem for years and years and years because we could buy Aberlour a Buna. It was young, non-age stated, but it was a batch-made, first-fill sherry released product. Wonderful stuff for less than £50. But Aberlour a Buna has been taken away from us now. I think there's just less of it being made and sold, I feel like. But what is being sold is much more expensive. It's way more than double that price that when we used to talk about it as recently as 4 or 5 years ago. And it's disappeared for us now. So what's left in the Aberlour range? I went into a bricks and mortar shop, and I went into 3 or 4 actually, and couldn't find any Aberlour on the shelf. Eventually I found some, and I walked in and there was it was at Royal Mill Whiskies actually. There was a good selection there, but they didn't have the 12-year-old unchill filter. That's the one that I wanted to pick up. It's interesting because we can't take the 12-year-old and compare it exactly to the regular, the 12-year-old unchill filtered and compare it to the regular 12-year-old because it's different cask makeup. It's a completely different batch, made at a completely different time. Everything is different about it. That's not what it's there to do. I think what they're doing with that 12-year-old is that they're talking about here's a product from us that is unchill filtered. Let's see how successful it is. Let's see how we do with it. I'm going to suggest that from my perspective, it seems to be successful because although I can buy it from an online store, when I was doing my bricks and mortar trip, which is a New Year resolution for me, I'm not going to not buy from online places, absolutely not. But when I can make trips to to bricks and mortar places, I'm going to do that. I couldn't find that. I couldn't find it. My next place was Cask Anna, 48% ABV Cask Anna. Now, it's a mixed batch. It's a mixed cask. It's a 3 casks that goes into it, I believe. And at 48% ABV, I was tempted. It's in the order of 50 to 60 pounds, depending on where you buy it from. And I thought that's where I'm going to put my money if I can't get the 12-year-old unchill filtered. Speaking to someone in that shop, we got into a discussion about Aberlour generally. And he moved me away from Cascana saying, and I said, but it's at 48%. There's a good chance it's unchill filtered. And he's like, no. And the person I was speaking to knows what he's talking about. I said, okay. I said, well, what would you recommend? Bizarrely, he recommended a 40% ABV product. Okay, I don't know it all. It's round about the same price because this is a 14-year-old product. So it's around about the same price as the Cascana. Yeah, this is batch 5 of Aberlour's 14-year-old double cask matured. So I'm holding this thing in my hand and I see the Aberfeldy, don't I? I'm looking at it going, okay, Aberfeldy's 12, of course. This is 14, a wee bit older. It's getting close to that sweet spot of malt whiskey, the teenage years, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. That's really where it's the magic tends to lie for me over the years. But we look and we see no statements about colour, about filtration, and an ABV of 40%. If I follow the ABVs, this should not be in my collection. Shouldn't be on the vPub. I shouldn't be talking about it. Unless... who else is going to do it? Who else is going to do this? Somebody's going to step up one day and say, all you guys do is bang on about natural presentation. And I'm going to be able to say, no, I'm trying these whiskies. I'm buying these whiskies. And I'm encouraging my community to do the same. Or when they don't live up to the price point, when they don't live up to the promise of what the malt whiskey made at a distillery can actually deliver, I encourage my community to not do the same. We can't just throw stones from a distance. We have to walk up. We have to reassure ourselves. We have to make sure that the things that we say is correct. So I've gone on a shop recommendation. If I'm going to pick up a 40% whiskey from Aberlour, this is the one that they recommended. So instead of me coming home with a 48% Cascana, I've got the 14-year-old. So let's see if we can get any more of an experience from this than we did from our poor wee Aberfeldy, which I'm afraid is just another also-ran whiskey. Lowlander is saying, was it Mark, aka the Jolly Topper, you were talking to in Royal Mail Whiskies? That the guy knows his stuff. I spoke to Mark in Royal Mail Whiskies, but it was not Mark who I spoke to about Aberlour. I just had a brief how you doing type chat with him. He was there today taking social media pictures, actually. So it wasn't. Hellswood is saying, loved the Aberlour 10-year-old, much missed. The Aberlour 10-year-old, I remember when I could pick that up for as cheaply as £16 back in the day. But I'm going back about a decade now, Helen. Even in more recent years, 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was tend to be £22. And for 40% ABV, it was a very easy drink and very, very enjoyable wee whiskey. And because it was at that low price point, you could forgive it so much. But it was 40%. It was chill filtered and it was coloured, but it was an easy drinker. Take the tap off and tell us how underwhelming it is, Aquaviti. The suspense is killing me. I'm not going to beat up this thing. I'm going to try to come at it positively, though, Matthew. But you and I are feeling the same thing. I know we are. Donald Rance is saying Glenfiddich Project XX or Project 20 is a forgotten release, 47% and not buggered around with. And delicious example of what the brand could be. I think that's right, and I think that that would have been a perfect one, Donald, a perfect fit for the hidden gems style of vpubs. Um, but that Project 20 is still out there. That was all the brand ambassadors got together. I think that that's how it worked, and they all selected their favorite cask, and then it was left to the master blender, which I think was Brian from memory, and he ended up using these casks to put together this blend from these this experimental when I say blend, I'm talking about a single malt, this vatting, this marriage of casks in order to make a good product. So it was a very, very decent sized outturn, and I think I'm pretty sure there's still a hell of a lot still out there sitting on shelves here, there, and everywhere. Anthony Lambert is saying the last Aberlour I had was back in 2017, 15-year-old cask reserve at 43% released for the French market. Seem to remember it being quite tasty. Not so tasty, Anthony, that you never went back and replaced it, though, right? Jimmy Legg is saying, I love that you're encouraging me to burn my money. Jimmy Legg, I doubt very much that either of these whiskies are taking your interest in the slightest. Maybe we'll get to that a wee bit later, though, buddy. Hang with us. We're going to nose this 14-year-old Aberlour right now. Immediately, we've got much more, there's much more things happening. There's much more coming out of this glass. Much more to talk about, much more to pick up on. It's a bit spicier, despite the ABV being the exact same. But if I'm honest, I think most of what's coming out of the glass is kind of woody notes. For a 14-year-old malt, you would love a wee bit of the malt to have a voice as well. So let's see. It noses really well. I mean, this is a lovely nose. This is a triple cask, sorry, double cask. But I mean, generic, quite generic when they talk about the double cask, but we know what they mean. We can use our experience to deduce what they're talking about here, but they're talking about American oak casks and sherry oak casks. So when they talk about American oak casks here, they're talking about bourbon. There'll be refill bourbon, maybe some first fill bourbon in there. And the sherry oak casks will be American oak as well, probably, more often than not, but there might be a wee bit of European oak in there too, but just generally wood that's previously held sherry, refill sherry, first fill sherry. Quite an opaque vatting, double cask matured. But if I compare it to the Aberfeldy now, I've mixed this Aberfeldy already, so I can't do a contrast. There's much more depth and fruit. There's a wee bit more kind of steps and dimension to this, but it is soft. It's gentle. Anyway, cheers. Let's see how we do with Aberlour. Mm. Damn it! It's just full of holes. So it arrives. The first thing that hits you is the texture. Thin, far too thin. Promised so much on the nose. It's just thin. It just is. There's no other way to dress this up. It's thin on arrival. The flavors are good. The flavors then come in, and there's good flavor there. There's a nice, soft kind of nutmeg edged spice thing. Eh, Fruit is kind of cooked and red, and berries, that type of thing. Only had one sip of this. It's pretty much gone already. I'll have another sip in a second. But then it just collapses in development, and then a wee flash of something, and then kind of disappears quite quickly. It is that perfect idea of a whiskey that is perfectly good. When I say it's full of holes, it's not full of faults. It's just full of holes in the tasting experience. This is the type of whiskey that gets you drunk. This is drinking whiskey. It tastes good. It's easy to drink. It's accessible. There's a nice soft spice, a wee bit of saccharin on the finish. There's nice soft spice there. But it's the type of thing that you would demolish, you would drink too quickly, not because you're loving it, but because it's forgetful. Just muscle memory would just tip it back. I think if this was intact, if this was much more intact, this is a 14-year-old malt whiskies have gone into this. I guarantee you there were good casks of malt whiskies that went into this as well. But what's happened, it's been put through that chill filtration system, which I guarantee you, at least for texture and probably for flavour too, is brutal. There's nothing to tell us that it's not. It's 40% ABV. We can assume that that's absolutely happened. We can assume that that's happened. It's probably been dosed with a healthy chunk of colour as well, and it's been put out there as a mass market whiskey. This is 50 to 60 pounds, and it's from a distillery that we know from other expressions, from our experience with it over the years. There's not a lot of independent Aberlour, let's be honest, but over the years we've been able to get a handle on the fact that Aberlour, again, like Aberfeldy, make bloody good malt whiskey. It's what makes it from the casks at the point of when they're getting disgorged and they make it to that bottling plant. It's the specifications that they're told to make it to bottle it to for the market that's causing the problem here. It's at that stage, so much of the soul of this whiskey has been lost. For what reason? Market demands? Profitability? Saleability? I'll drink this whiskey. And I'll enjoy this whiskey. I will not replace this whiskey. If this is better than the Cascana, I am very glad that I didn't pick up that Cascana. I'm not passing any comment on it because I didn't try it myself. I went purely on the discussion that I had today. Red Mordecai saying Glenrothes American Oak 1995 was matured and ex-sherry cask made from American oak. It fooled a lot of even seasoned, excuse the pun, enthusiasts who thought it was ex-bourbon matured. Um, y- y- you know, there's going to be a lot of flavors and a lot of things that come from the previous incumbent, whether it's sherry or otherwise. There's going to be a lot of flavors and components in the whiskey tasting experience that just comes from the wood. And what I've learned over the years, and actually very recent years, if I'm brutally honest, is just how much of a contrast there is from American oak versus European oak. And if you were just going to broad brush it, you would kind of European oak tends to be a lot more spice, a drier, a crisper, quite a vibrant, alive thing, tannic. Certainly, when you talk about drying, drying on the palate, but certainly drying on the finish as well. But it can be fabulous. It can be really compelling when it's done well. And American oak tends to bring that kind of sherry, cooked fruits and things like that with a much sweeter, rounder, softer, sometimes a bit more syrupy uh, side to things. A much easier drinking experience, much more of a crowd pleaser type whiskey, and a much more kind of modern take on whiskey, I would say as well. Whereas European oak, you would be kind of associating, again, broad brush with a wee bit more old school type whiskies. I remember Gordon Dundas joining me for a vPub way back in 2017, 2018, don't remember, but literally giving me samples of the same whiskey that had been matured in American oak and European oak. Hammer blow demonstration of the difference that the flavors can make, and talking about that. And in modern whiskey maturation, there is very little European oak out there. It's very rare, it's very expensive, and it's very precious. Most of the sherry cask whiskey that we're drinking today, whether it's exclusively matured, um, I mean, there are small outturns, small releases, and things like that. They can be European oak, but most of it is American oak, and most of the casks that are being seasoned by the sherry industry for the Scotch industry is actually American oak. Very little of it is European oak in modern times. It's just the way that it is. It's a conservation species, European oak. Somewhere down the road, I'll wager it's quite a long road. There will be a recycled review with a lot of 5 and 6 bottles. Well, I'll either make a concerted effort, Menno, to get through these quickly and talk about them in the recycled review. But I can't imagine that they're going to change that much from here. This is drinkable. It's very drinkable whiskey, but I could put this down in front of somebody who's only been sipping malt whiskey and really exploring and enjoying malt whiskey for 1 year, and they would go, Eh, it's exactly what it is. And that's a shame because Aberlour, as we know, makes fabulous whiskey. Anyway, I think we're doing okay for time. We're through our first two. That's the ones I wanted to get out of the way. Doing the 40 percenters so you don't have to. And I don't mean to be brutal, but Kilco Brian is saying French oak finished whiskey over on this side of the pond are wild. You're talking about getting some European French oak, where you're maybe getting some American single malts and things into there as well. There's quite a wee bit of that around. Sometimes it's fresh casks, sometimes it's ex wine, sometimes it's barriques. Uh, all sorts of things happening. French oak as well is also European oak. It's interesting that especially toasted French oak can really bring a lovely, gentle cooked spice, lots of nutmeg and things like that too. Um, when you pick up whiskies like this, even if they used that type of whiskey, you'll never know about it. It's just part of the vatting. It's just becomes generic Scotch whiskey, double cask matured with all these kind of opaque, vague statements on there. Double cask matured. Okay. Sherry oak, American oak. I mean, literally, it's just why put anything more on there? Oops, jumped. Justin Wan is saying, I thought this was going to be a 40% night. No, don't worry. Don't worry. We're moving on. And David Larenko is saying, nothing a teaspoon of Ardbeg wouldn't fix, as Ralphie says. That's when Ralphie's got a great, great take on this thing, where he's got this really soft, but, smooth and flavorful whiskey or whatever, and he doses it with something else to save it, as he calls it. And I think that's a good thing to do at home. Why suffer a bottle of whiskey that you're not really enjoying? Why don't you sacrifice some of it? Just get a wee bottle like this, maybe, and just kind of half and half, or work it out yourself. Try and work it out in the glass for a wee bit, and then put it in a bottle, put it to the side, leave it for a bit, come in on a quiet night and open it up and see, or maybe even get somebody close to you to blind pour it for you. Not so you can try and guess what it is, but so you can try and guess or determine whether you like it or not. Whiskey Games Matt, just as it jumped, buddy, he's saying, would that Aberlour make as much money for the distillery than an equivalent 14-year-old at 46% and non-chill filtered? The marketing division must think so. I guess that must be it. And we don't know. I don't know the industry, right? I don't know the numbers. I don't know the stats. I don't know where that goes. But we can see that stuff that's getting constantly turned out. So they're either doing it very, very deliberately because it's the right thing to do from a business perspective, or they're just not thinking about it, or there's a policy in place that that's what that distillery is going to do. Why don't we have a natural Aberfeldy? I think that would be amazing. Why don't we just have one in the range, fully natural? Doesn't even need to have an age statement these days. Bring us something that's fully natural from Aberfeldy. Bring us something that's fully natural from Aberlour, because you might be putting that unchill filtered 12-year-old out there. And I think it's 46 or 48% ABV, 46 from memory maybe. But make it fully natural. Don't put any colour in there as well. And don't just put unchill filtered on it, but put the fact that you've not coloured it either. See how successful it is, especially when it's priced sensibly. Look at the premium that people are paying today in 2023 for natural, well presented whiskies because of the reputation that they're building. Now, I've had the comments, the same as every other YouTube channel out there. If you pour two whiskies next to each other and one of them's fully natural and the other one's not, it's got a colour added to it and it's potentially chill filtered, can you tell the difference? No, not always. It's not the same for all whiskies all of the time. But if you poured me 50 drams or even 10 drams of something that's chill filtered and 10 drams of a mix of various things that are natural, and if I compared these 10 and 10, I would pick a favourite pool of 10 and you would pick a favourite pool of 10 as well. And I would suggest that as a community, that we would absolutely be able to pick out the pool that is natural as our favourite, because we're not talking about two whiskies. We're not talking about being able to tell the difference. We're not talking about that silly kind of on the spot challenge. We're talking about our experience over the years. When you look at the cookie trail of bottles that you accumulate and over accumulate, what the ones that you want to go out and replace, the ones that you truly love, they're natural whiskies, aren't they? for the most part. Maybe dotted with a few ones that you're not so sure. Generally speaking, we know the whiskies that we're loving are natural. It's not a coincidence. It's not what happens during the whiskey making process. It's not what happens during the maturation process. It's what happens at the point of disgorging that cask and putting it into a bottle. And it makes a huge difference to the enjoyment and our experience. Mine and yours as a community. Whiskey with Molly, Ben is Buckbear Dram. It's only my trying to tease you, appreciate the beauty and the good stuff, and loosen the purse strings to spend more. I started my journey on Jura 12. There's a confession, Ben. There is a confession indeed. Jura is in the offing. I've got a bottle of Jura specifically for this, but I've held on to it for so long that the Jura that I have is now discontinued. So I'd probably need to buy another Jura to go and look at Jura again. And I think Jura suffers a lot of the things that I'm talking about with this Aberfeldy and Aberlour tonight. Sorry, um, Jura suffers from very, very similar things as well. And it's a shame because Jura as a distillate is pretty unique. There's not a lot of things that taste like Jura out there. I've got one or two independent Juras down there. One from Douglas Lane that I do enjoy. I mean, it's jaggy. It's really quite jaggy. It's rough at times, but it's very, very interesting. Interesting to the point that it's Moorish because it gives you something different almost on every sip. Let's finish off our Aberlour and move on. Dan Swank is saying cheers. Thanks for the honest review. Honestly speaking, Dan, all you'll ever get here is me trying to be as honest as I possibly can. I don't owe anybody anything other than the community that turn up every week and watch and click that wee like, that wee thumbs up, and support through the Barflies, and especially my amazing patrons. Talking of which, I have admitted already tonight that I've been ignoring my patrons. But hopefully this Sunday, unless we record the Dramfeast podcast, that could come up on Sunday. If that's happening as well, I'll bump into next week. But I've already got my patrons on standby, and I've penciled in a vPub lock-in, a private lock-in for patrons only on Sunday night. And if it doesn't happen on Sunday, it'll be a week down the road. But patrons, any of you that are watching, I'll keep up in touch with you there and let you know which Sunday it's going to be. Jimmy Legacy, I'm going to open my Jura 16 someday. Just get it open, Jimmy. I mean, what else is it doing? Is that the Jura Zone? Is that the one that you have? And MM Carsten is saying, had the Jura Tasteable edition. 20XX triple sherry finish with like 52% back then. That one was great. So there you go. I recognize the name, the Tasteable edition. But it's not one that I ever had, MM Karsten, but it just goes to show that they're all capable of doing. I think every distillery is capable of releasing fantastic stuff. Something happens that doesn't always represent what they're capable of, I think. This is not meant to throw shade at blenders or anything because it's market demands that's at play here. It's business that we're talking about. Let's move on to something. It's already been preempted. I could have segued in at the time and it could have been perfect. Some of you will notice immediately what this bottle is. This is one I should have replaced a long time ago. I did enjoy my time with this whiskey, and I did consider it something that I would consider replacing. But I also wanted to play around with some things that were a wee bit older as well. These capsules need to be a lot easier to remove, don't you? Much more easier to remove. I need to just pull it from the right side, of course. It's a clear capsule on this one, so it's a wee bit tricky. I went out and bought this specifically. I said, okay, if I'm going to do it, let's do it. Let's get back into the foggy moss. So we've had an Aberfeldy from Dewar's. Dewar's are owned by Bacardi now. And we've had an Aberlour, which is Pernod Ricard. But we're back in the Dewar's stable now with this one. This is an Aultmore. But we're watching our prices right now. So I haven't gone for an expensive Aultmore. I've gone for the one that most people will buy and interact with. Here we are with something from the Aberfeldy, a sister distillery, let's say, of Aberfeldy, but it's Aultmore of the Foggy Moss. Quite a whimsical wee name here. But what's super interesting about this 12-year-old product is that this is at 46% ABV. So we can look at the front label on this and say, oh, there's a chance that this is natural whiskey. But what we actually have to do is to turn it around to the other side. Thank you, Dewars. This is what we're after. This is what we're after. This is exactly what it is. How can it? It's not difficult. You know what's crazy? This is not that much more expensive. Okay, £5, £6, £7 more expensive. Would you pay that for natural product? Because look at the back label here. It says here, natural colour, no chill filtering. Bacardi, Dewars, must believe in this, certainly for this malt from this distillery from Aultmore up in Speyside. Look at the colour of it for 12 years old. I think that's honest whiskey. Beautiful colour. Look at its sister distillery at 12 years old. 40% ABV. Chill filtered, dosed with colour. Flat as a fart in the glass. Needs to work a bit harder. I've dosed it with cast strength Aberfeldy to see if I can save it. Here we have something that immediately, it's already got me on side. I just feel so much more comfortable. This is a premium product in my hands. This is legitimate malt whiskey. Nothing's been added and nothing's been taken away. And we know that to be the case because Dewars have stepped up and slapped it on the label for us. Mild pop, curved shoulders is probably not going to glug, but we'll give it a try. Tiny, tiny wee glug. I'm going to pour a wee bit more. So you can see just how light and gold that is. This is the colour of whiskey. This is the colour of malt whiskey at 12 years old. This is the truth. This is the truth. We don't have Paxaret treated casks anymore. We don't have super active casks, and if we do, they tend to be pretty expensive, or they tend to have had something like Pedro Jimenez or something super, super powerful in it beforehand. But if we want something that's from bourbon, first fill bourbon, refill bourbon, that kind of mix, this is the truth. This is the colour it is, and this is what needs to be celebrated. This is the encouraging, healthy colour for malt whiskey to be. This is straight out the bottle. This is the neck pour. And it's quite quiet. There's a nice, fragrant, kind of almost floral top note to this. Floral fruit, if that makes any sense. So orange blossom, maybe a bit of lychee, white fruit. Clean, linen clean. Malty. Think of cold porridge. Honeydew melon. These kind of fruits. Lychee, honeydew. So we're not getting dosed with that kind of toffee caramel oaky side. This is a much more clean, much more, the spirits are just allowed to kind of be. Somebody's put this together for us. Enthusiasts, people that like to enjoy whiskey, people that like to appreciate whiskey and take time with it. What a difference on arrival. The texture is there. This is not the thickest glue paste whiskey you've ever had, but what a difference. And how much more alive it is. So it's vibrant. You've got this white pepper note. It's really clean malt. Really, it's so more than just the thickness, there is a genuine oiliness here. This is perceptible. I could put this down to somebody who's just in the whiskey door, just stepped inside the whiskey bubble, and put these two together and say, which one is the more oily? Which one is the much more the thicker texture? Anybody can pick this up. This is not difficult. You don't need to be super experienced into whiskey to realize that this oiliness is here. It hides its ABV well. This is mellow and clean. The ABV is coming across as like a white pepper note. ever so slightly spiced. That fruit is a wee bit in the background. The fruit I'm talking about, that white fruit, the lychee, honeydew melon type thing. So actually, in the palate, it goes a wee bit apple, like a baked goods, baked apple, that type of thing. It's a bit more appley on the palate. And the finish is decent too, and because of the texture, because it clings to the palate a wee bit more, it's helping that finish. It's not an extremely long finish, but it's a good medium finish, and everything is fresh and clean and honest. The difference is unmistakable. I am not comparing apples for apples. I am comparing a Southern Highland distillery with a Speyside distillery, but two products from the same stable. One is natural and one is not. And I put it to you that out of 400 of you that are watching live right now on YouTube and whoever else is tuning in from the Facebook side, I put it to you that I think much more than 80% of you would be picking this because it's just so obvious. This has made it to the bottling plant. This has been disgorged, and this has been put together at that plant at a specification where the people have decided that they're going to keep this thing intact. Often veiled in, in obscuring mist from the foggy moss. Okay, does it tell us anything about tasting on this? Not really. Their malted barley has no hint of peat smoke, ensuring the smoothest, cleanest taste. I would agree that it's very clean. This rarest of Speyside classics has been distilled in handmade copper pot stills since 1897. What a USP that is. 1897 is something. Yet for over a century, it was only sold in limited editions aimed at collectors. Well, thank you, Dewars, for giving us this. Thank you for your Craigellachie. And thank you also for your Royal Brackla upgrades. The Macduff stuff, the Glendeveron and the Deveron, and as we're finding with Aberfeldy, I think it's a wee shame for those distilleries because I bet you the malt that they put out. In fact, we know that the malt that they put out is good because we get to taste it. I've got a Macked Up Duff up there from Signatory that is superb. We know that the product that they make is good. What makes it into the bottle is a different thing. That I am very glad to have an Aultmore back on the shelf. I put it to you that the majority, if this is your lane, spirit forward, but quiet, clean whiskey, bourbon cask matured. If that's your lane, I put it to you that you would enjoy this. There's no hint of ethanol here or kind of when I talk about spirit forward, I'm just talking about something that's not cask dominated. This is in check. There's no harsh new make to this. This is just very easy, clean, malty, oily, nice whiskey. No saccharin. Excellent. Rob Smith is saying, I just bought a bottle of Aultmore 12-year-old this past summer, opened it and didn't think much of it. Turned out I had COVID at the time. Now I love the stuff he's saying. I'm not laughing at you having COVID, but it's interesting that rather than you feeling rubbish, I suppose it's a positive, right? Rather than you feeling terrible and taking a test to realize you've COVID, it's through your thinking that you're having a poor time with a bottle of whiskey that makes you realize you've got COVID. Fantastic, Rob. Thanks for that. Fair play to Aultmore, says Lowlander. That looks decent. How much did that bottle cost? I think I kept the receipts for this because I knew that it would come up. I actually paid over the odds for it because I bought it from Bricks and Mortar Place. So I bought this in the Royal Mile. I didn't buy it at Royal Mile Whiskies because they didn't have it in stock. But I went down to, I think it's one of the posher shops a bit further down the Royal Mile on the way back to the car. It was the old Edinburgh whiskey shop or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to check right now. More, see if this is a Master Malt, for example. The don't seem to have the Aultmore 12 in stock, but they had it in stock earlier on. Let's go to the Whiskey Exchange. I should check Royal Mail Whiskies. See, because it may be that it's in the warehouse and it just wasn't in that shop today. It's not in stock at the Whiskey Exchange either. When I was looking for this earlier, I found it, so it's available somewhere. Oh, okay. When Royal Mail Whiskies had it in stock. Now, Royal Mail Whiskies, this is the disaster. If this is true, Royal Mail Whiskies is suggesting that this is discontinued. That would be a shame. I paid £50 for this today. That's too much, but I paid the £50 because I'm in bricks and mortar, and I don't mind paying a wee premium when I'm in bricks and mortar. But I was also in bricks and mortar on the Royal Mail, which tends to be more expensive again, which is the centre of Edinburgh, by the way. £50 is the top whack I would be paying for this. Maybe 50 plus, 52, 53, something like that. It's just the way we are for fully natural, good quality whiskey. That tends to be where the prices go. Now look at Springbank 10. Look at any kind of Edredauer is much more expensive again, different casks. There's lots of really quite interesting, nice whiskies. Kilkerran 12, for example, 48 to £50 these days. It's just the way that it's going. If we do get natural product, I think it is worth occasionally spending a wee bit more for. Be interesting to see what you guys say, whether you've got any intelligence as to whether this is discontinued or not. That would be a disaster. Falscraft is saying, is this newish that the Aultmore is non-coloured and non-chill filtered? No, it's been as long for this Aultmore 12. It's been as long as their, what was it called, Hidden Malts range or something that came out, which is far back as 2015 or 2016. So it's been around for a long time. Dewars got Craigellachie, Aultmore and Royal Brackley. Are they moving in the right direction? Maybe some hope for Aberfeldy. I hope so, Justin, but I'm starting to get quite nervous that our Aultmore has been taken away from us. Let's go down and see if anybody's trying to get me low under the scene. I think Royal Mail Whiskey's website is set up for when they sell out, it displays discontinued, perhaps. Thanks for telling me the price. Yeah, so I've got the Royal Mail Whiskies purchases I had here. I don't have the receipt for the other shop. So, yes, that's what I paid for it. Let me tell you that I'm happy to have it, especially if it could be potentially discontinued. I hope it's not. If somebody's got the wherewithal to jump onto the Aultmore website and see if it's still listed on their website, that would potentially suggest that it's still going to be available in the future. I would say that the majority of you should be able to get your hands on Aultmore 12. There was plenty of it always around, and it was one of the things that you could pick up in duty free and travel retail that was worthy of you picking up too. Just looked at the website, Justin Wan, fantastic. And the 12-year-old is still listed as core range, so all is good. Fantastic, Justin, and thanks very much for preempting me. Graham Brown is saying, evening, Aquavita and crew. Hope you're all having a good night, just settling in with a pre-birthday day, counting down to the minute to 35. Wow, my goodness. My goodness, so that means tomorrow is Graham Brown's birthday. I'm planning to kill the stream before midnight tonight, but I think we might just keep it going beyond midnight so we can raise a glass for Graham and wish him happy birthday. He's been tremendous. I'm not telling tales out of school when I suggest that if you're speaking to people through social media to connect with Dramface or indeed the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, there's a really good chance that the gentleman that you'll interact with is Graham Brown. Many happy returns when it comes, buddy. I hope that you're still here at midnight for me to do that officially. Dogs Have No Uncles Colin is saying it's for sale on their website, £50 or £55 engraved. So you can buy it direct from them. Fantastic. And Malt Brother Ray is saying it's still listed on the website. Thank you guys. You're all heroes for backing me up on this. Okay, where are we going to go from here? I think we've found one. I think I've hit two duds, honestly. It's a shame to say that, but I have. But I've found in the Aultmore, I've found something that is genuinely good. Something that we don't talk about in these parts. We haven't talked a lot about in these parts around the vPub, but this is a very good, clean whiskey. And it's arguable that I should have been talking about it a wee bit more in the past. So Let me put up. We've got two more whiskies to do, and I've got three bottles here. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll put up a poll, and if I make a poll, you can decide what we're going to talk about tonight. Start a poll. We can do a new distillery. I don't think I've been very guilty of ignoring it. We can do a very well-known distillery that has next to nothing when it comes to um, official range, and we can do a distillery that's not new. It's been around for a hell of a long time, but it's just been taken over by new ownership, and it's going to be interesting to see where they're at now and where it moves in the future. Um, so I don't know. I've got an official and I've got an indie from that. So let's see. I'll let you decide. I'm going to drop this poll in. This is live on YouTube, so if you're watching on Facebook, you won't get this poll. But everybody in YouTube will see this poll up here now. And I'm going to take your lead on the two. So there's one of these three that's going to drop off tonight that I'm not going to do, that I'll have to do on the next time that I do the Unignored series. I can maybe cover it. There's one of these that I really hope comes up, because there's one that I'm curious to talk about and I'm curious to share, but I'm open to what you guys think. The Ignored. I'm going to do 5 whiskies like I always do on these things, but you decide what the next two are going to be. And I'll leave it up there just for a couple of minutes while I jump into the lounge and let you guys look at what we're talking about. Graham Fraser saying good evening. Lovely to have you in, Graham. I hope you're doing well. It was nice to see you at the club earlier this week too. That's me just home from an evening shift. Graham, you're either working or doing fantastic whiskey exploration. I hope you're rested and doing well, and I hope you've got your feet up. Nice of you to join us for the quiz. Justin Ryan is saying, I was hoping for the Clydeside because I'm visiting Glasgow in summer. It looks like that because Clydeside is a new distillery. I can't see the poll right now; it's collapsed. But I imagine that Clydeside is going to be at the tail end because it's a new distillery, not fully global distribution yet, and my audience is obviously all over the place. But if I was to get in the car and I had to get to a distillery as quickly as possible, I would get to Clydeside in less than 20 minutes. That's my closest distillery. And I don't know if I've held up a bottle of Clydeside whiskey on the vPub. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I really don't think I have. And I have it. Well, Brother Ray is saying, why do I have the feeling you'll open all 3 of them? Mon the Ardmore, says Ryan. Colin is saying, I voted Ardmore. I still dislike the entry level, but I bought an indie bottle last year and it was fantastic. David Lorenko says Ardmore is really ignored and really should not be. Whiskey with Molly Spain, do you consider Kilchoman ignored? It's rarely talked about on here. Yeah, I probably am guilty of that, but I have at times used Kilchoman in peated lineups. I've used it in blind challenges. I've done things with Kilchoman. I've even had Anthony Wills on the show, of course, talked about Kilchoman at length, given it the whole thing. I would say that Kilchoman is a fan favourite. It's maybe not one of my fan favourites, but I do love the whiskey. And I found that despite Kilchoman being a whiskey that's mostly sold at a young age, now that there's mature Kilchoman out there, that's the stuff I'm really connecting with. I've got a 2009 vintage that I thought was fantastic. The best Fashil release I tasted in 2022 was Kilchoman's release. It was a 16-year-old. Incredible to think, right? Obviously, I didn't get a bottle of that. It was like gold dust. But my goodness, it was fantastic. And in my opinion, by far, the best Fashil release and the best Kilchoman that I've ever tasted too. Okay, let's have a look at it. Graham Young is saying, cheers, Roy. Sitting down to share a dram with Gino and getting set for a snowmobile trip tomorrow. Cheers. Fantastic, guys. It's good to have a wee buddy dynamic going on there as well. And I hope you enjoy your trip out in the snow tomorrow. Okay. P. Edison, I think you have Aquavites, maybe talking about the Clydeside, and I may have done that. Okay, let's see where we're at. Well, it's clear That's interesting actually because Clydeside. Let's see if we can get the votes for Clydeside up a wee bit. Can Clydeside beat Ardmore? But clearly, sorry, Tormore. Clydeside is in third place at 20 with 25% of the votes. Tormore comes just in at second place with 30%, but 45% of the votes goes to Ardmore. So that's interesting. Let's get on with the Ardmore then. That seems to be the popular one for you guys. Yeah, I'll need to end that poll in a wee minute, but I'll leave it up for a second. So where do we go for Ardmore? Because remember that Ignored is not about, yeah, let's go out and buy up as many indies as we can from this distillery. That's kind of like, that's more of a kind of under the radar or hidden gems type thing. And I think that's where Ardmore fits. That's where it fits. But there is an official release. It's already been mentioned in here. And it's on theme because it's a 40% ABV. So it's on theme with the first two that we had tonight. But, and here's the thing, we need to remember that we've talked about it at length. I'm not going to keep going on and on and on about the 40% presentation thing, the chill filtration, the colour, and all the rest of it. We need to remember the bulk of people that's coming into whiskey will turn up at a whiskey selection, they'll see the prices, and they will absolutely fall over. They will not believe what people are paying for a bottle of booze. That's the truth of it. I've got as many anecdotes over the years when I tell people what I pay for bottles of whiskey. They think I'm nuts. They haven't, they haven't understood what it can do. They haven't understood how long a bottle of whiskey can last. They haven't understood the true value proposition yet. So you have to be gentle with them. So when they're looking at whiskey, they're potentially in a supermarket, potentially going through travel retailer, potentially somewhere where they're actually just looking at prices. And who can criticize that? Because I know nothing about wine. I know very little about wine. I kind of get an idea of what kind of wines I like, that I might like. But what I'm doing is I'm going into the shop, I'm looking at the shelves. I'm not going to buy the cheapest. I'm not going to buy the crazy price stuff. I'm going to buy something that looks quite, the price, the value, maybe something that's on offer, something that I recognize, something that a friend's recommended. But I'm going to grab something that fills me with confidence that I'm not doing something foolish. I'm just going to grab the thing. That's what's happening in whiskey every day, millions of times a day, everywhere. And that's the attraction for bottles like this. That's what they're trying to do, because this Ardmore is a bottle of Ardmore Legacy. And this is available at every retailer. It's available on every online retailer all of the time. And it's also available in every supermarket where supermarkets are permitted to sell alcohol. This has not been on my shelves for a couple of years, but it used to always be on my shelf. Why? Because it was always available at a good price. And if people asked me for a recommendation and they were just getting into whiskey and they wanted a peated whiskey, because of the price point of this and because of the fact that I enjoyed it personally, this is what I was recommending, despite it being a 40% whiskey. For beginners coming in, this is going to help them find their feet. It was still at 40%, along with Annock 12 and one or two other kind of low ABV whiskies, Glenmoran G10, as I've already mentioned, things that I was enjoying despite that neutered, let's say, presentation. Let's see what Ardmore has got in store for us. This has appeared in a recycled review, this Ardmore Legacy. I have had it before. This is famously the bottle that launched the Whiskey Mystery YouTube channel. Fantastic debut video from them. Going back to, I think, 2018 now. Look what's happened there. So this is capable of doing things. And if you look at this, it's an non-age stated product, but it's actually pretty pale. Maybe not quite as pale as our Aultmore there, but it's still a pale whiskey. So there is caramel in this. There's no doubt there's caramel in this, but it's not heavily dosed. I would suggest it's light touch. The problem with this is that it replaced their unchill filtered release. Ardmore, this is the Legacy, but the one that came out before was called Unchill Filtered. It was 46% ABV, but again, it was non-age statement, and that was a very good whiskey. So this was a price point whiskey, and a lot of people were annoyed when it replaced the Unchill Filtered release. I was one of them. But I made peace with it and realized it was still quite good. Uh, there's a bit of youth on this, especially coming on the back of that Aultmore. There's a wee whiff of new make on this. But the peat is a sweet peat, sweet aromatic peat. Vanillas, bit of toffee. The nose, if I'm honest, is not exciting me right now. I was actually pleased to have this back in the house again, this Ardmore, but let's see how it is on the palate. Please bear in mind the caveat with all of these uncorkings that I do on these kind of things is that it's not a proper review. It's a first impression. Literally just opened the thing. Peat brings interest. But unfortunately what we have, a wee bit of saltiness. What we have there is that quite a light, soft arrival. It almost kind of fills your mouth, and you just have the sense of a kind of wateriness on the back of that Aultmore, especially the oiliness of the Aultmore. So this is a much thinner palate immediately. There's a kind of oaky, not tannic, but an oak polish, resinous kind of note from it that appears. It's interesting. I got a wee bit of saltiness there. There's a wee bit of kind of saltiness on there. It just took me by surprise. It's gone now, a wee flash. But this is kind of relying on it's a gentle whiskey, but it's relying on the peat to bring interest. A little bit of a kind of winey note, like a sweet wine, like a dessert wine. And amongst that smoke, light smoke. It's different from the Aberfeldy. It's different from the Aberlour. And it's different in the respect, and I think that that's why it kind of endeared itself to me. There is enough here that it is a wee bit different. There is interest here. There's a sense that this is a different spirit. There's a sense that it's a different whiskey. There's a sense that it's a little bit more bold, a little bit less generic. And it maybe is that it's because of the peat, maybe it's because of a slightly savoury nature, but it's a wee bit better. This in a bricks and mortar store was 28, £29. You can get this in the supermarket for sub 25. That's the difference. That's the game that this is playing. Now, the Aberfeldy and Aberlour was much older. This is a non-age stated whiskey. I understand. But as I sit in front of you tonight, with only a few sips of each of these three whiskies, it's the cheaper one that I would buy. It's this Ardmore that I would take away out of the three of them. Based on my first few sips, that's a clear and easy decision. Is it because I like peated whiskey? Is it because I have a soft spot for Ardmore? I'm not really sure. But I tell you what I'm going to do. 40% ABV. Let's do the same. Now, I don't have it. I'll need to go over and grab it. Let's do the same with the Ardmore as we did with our poor wee Aberfeldy earlier, and dose it with a cask strength version. Give me a second. I've got a cask strength version. This is a posh one. This is a whiskey gift. Sorry, a Christmas whiskey gift. It was not chosen without help from me, but this is a release from the Sponge, Whiskey Sponge, and this is at 52% ABV. And this is full of farmyard. This is full of all sorts of bizarre Ardmore, but it's a 1990s Ardmore, so it's got quite a good age on it. I think Ardmore in the 1990s, that was, yeah, it would have been that would have been back when they direct fired their stills. So I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did with the Ardmore. I see they're in different shaped glasses. This is the darker, Aberfeldy on the left here, my left, your right. And on my right, your left, we've got the slightly paler Ardmore. I'm going to leave them. Now we've got a peated whiskey in the mix. I'm just going to cover them. I'm going to put a wee coin on the top. Keep it in the glass and see how we go. Am I going to recommend that Ardmore to you? If you've got £25 to spend on a whiskey, if your budget is really, really tight, you know what? You could do a lot worse than throwing it towards this wee Ardmore bottle. It's a good, wee, easy drinking whiskey. It's a wee bit spirity. It shows its youth. It's not a perfect whiskey. It's not excellent, but it's a good whiskey, and there's interest in the bottle there. If I was scoring it for Dramface, I think it would be a 5 out of 10 at best. If I was scoring it in a recycled review, I think I'd be up at 7 out of 10. I think I'm glad to have it here, but I'd rather it was the unchill filtered, because I loved the 46% unchill filtered. And that's not just nostalgia, it's not a romantic thing, it was just a better whiskey. What have I missed here? So it looks like the poll, before I kill this poll here, Clydeside did its wee best to catch up. Well done, everyone. But it was clearly the Ardmore that took it. And maybe some of you are right that I might end up doing the Clydeside. You never know. How much whiskey are you pouring, Roy? I was doing about half and half, but Jimmy, these won't be sipped tonight. I've got wee empty sample bottles here, as I mentioned to you earlier. I've actually got a couple of them around, and I'll pour these off into the sample bottle, and I'll let them marry for a little while and check them a wee bit later, because I've essentially got 2 whiskies here at 40% ABV that I might not be keen to reach for. They might just get lost in the collection. If I can mix them up into something that's more exciting, then all is not lost. Although you don't want to, especially, I might use a cheaper Ardmore than this sponge one to bring life into the. But this, the Aberfeldies that I have are not particularly expensive to bring life into the 12-year-old Aberfeldy. Dogs Have No Uncles is saying Ardmore is currently $19.99 on Amazon. Currently, the only single malt whiskey cheaper is the Glenmorangie Classic, and I would buy it over Aberfeldy 12, which is offensively inoffensive. That's a great way of putting it, Colin. Offensively inoffensive. It is literally generic vanilla whiskey. Whiskey with Molly saying, what do you think about Glenmorangie Warehouse 1 range? Not tried enough of it. There was about 3 or 4 on the shelf today. The Oloroso cask was there, along with a wine cask and something else. I just haven't had a chance to get to grips with it yet. Are you enjoying it, Ben? Are you suggesting that it's something we should be looking at? And Anthony Lambert is saying the 46% peated portwood from Ardmore is non-chill filtered. Added colour, though. €40 here in Germany. They do these slightly different expressions from time to time. It's not nearly as widely available as the one I've just shared with you, but they are out there. Thanks for pointing that out, Anthony, as well. I know a lot of people are enjoying it. Looks like Sugar Kitty is doing a good job of cleaning up some spam chat that we've gotten as well. Thank you very much for your support. Thanks for looking out for us. Terrific stuff. Graham Fraser is saying not all 40% whiskies are equal. I would agree with Graham Fraser there. So it's Graham Fraser talking to Des. Like I say, I've still got a soft spot for Anok 12 as well. It's such a unique 40% whiskey. Yes, would I want it? Do I want it to be 46? Yes, I've just suggested with Ardmore. Yeah, absolutely. And with Anok as well. I wish that it was. However, I'll keep it like that. If Aberfeldy and Aberlour can go out and bring us more natural releases in their range. Aberfeldy right now bring us nothing of interest. And Macduff, through their Devon or Glendevon ranges, one is travel retail, one is general retail, nothing. It's all 40%. Even a ridiculously well-aged product, 40% ABV. It's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. It must be heartbreaking for the people that make the whiskey as well. I always point out that to that Edredale 10 at 40% ABV, I think that's going to be deleted. I think that will not last. When Signatory made that announcement on the online Scotch Whisky Awards, I don't know if they were talking about their single malt releases as well as their indie range from Signatory. I don't know if they were talking about all of their malt, which might suggest the end of that Edredale 10. But is it interesting there that even a producer like Edredale has still got a 40% whiskey out there, right? And Whiskey with Molly is saying Balblair 12 for a value bourbon cask whiskey. I have touched upon it and I have talked about it. Interestingly, Ralphie spoke much more positively about it than I did. I've got Balblair 12 there, and I'm not getting on with it so well, but it is much, much, much better presented than this poor wee Aberfeldy. Okay, let's move on to our Tormore, which is your second pick. Tormore, I'm talking about distilleries tonight that have an official range, and Tormore kind of have an official range, but not really. This is sometimes available and then not available for ages, and we really don't know what's happening with it because, you know, I guess trying to communicate or get information out of Pernod Ricard Chivas Brothers is a wee bit like just shouting down a well. You're just not going to get anything back other than your own echoes. But regardless, there was a 14-year-old official release, and this is the 60-year-old official release that I have here. But this has been in my collection for so long, and it's still there. And I think that this is decent whiskey if you like Tormore. I am ambivalent about it. There is a finish here. Tormore is one of these kind of tropical fruit type distilleries. When you get a good one, it's a really good one. When it's a bad one, it comes off as kind of almost herbal, and it finishes a wee bit like you can sometimes get that really strong saccharine finish that I really don't enjoy, and that's kind of my legacy. It's kind of the way I feel about this Tormore here. What's super interesting is that Tormore has been now bought over, it's been purchased by Elixir. So some point in the future, I don't know how long it's going to take for it all to get sorted out and ironed out and for them to work out what they're actually going to do. But the more time they take, the better in my book, because there's going to be a lot of fanfare around whatever Elixir do. We hope that Elixir are going to bring us a good release or a good core lineup of releases from Tormore, because there could potentially be deep stock available there. We hope deep, good quality stock. I cannot recommend to you, look, I'm already well through this. I cannot recommend this. This is ignored on the shelf. It's ignored here in my collection. It's ignored because I have not found a way to fall in love with this whiskey yet. Even although this is a 48% ABV whiskey that tells us on the label that it's non-chill filtered. And this is going back to 2016. You can see also there that it was bottled in January 2016. For a Pernod Ricard release, this is wonderfully well presented. This is very, very close to natural whiskey. The only thing that's missing here is they don't mention anything about the state of the colour. So we can assume, therefore, that they've maybe added a dot of colour into this. But overall, for Pernod Ricard, this is very, very good presentation. Still, I fall short with Tormore. Am I ignoring Tormore because it's just not good enough? Well, the indies that I've had from Tormore, I've got a Dougie Lang over there as well. It's been open a while. Has the same flavour profile, albeit a much lighter, much paler experience. What I have here is an indie release. This is from Dalgety. Dalgety is the indie bottler. I'll show you this label here. This is from the people who do the Lady of the Glen independent bottlings. Come on, give us a wee focus on that there. Be good. Come on. I really don't know what to do other than reach past and force the whole thing. There we go. There we go. You can see that now. So we've got a good high ABV presentation here, 50.9% ABV for an 11-year-old Tormore. Much younger than this one that I've already declared that I'm not enjoying too much. But if I get the same profile on this, there are distilleries out there that we're just not potentially going to easily connect with. It's going to need to be an absolute belter to win us over. It's there, it is there, but this one smells much, much nicer, much nicer. So it's almost a kind of green basil, sour, sweet, overripe, some kind of funky fruit note. Think of overripe guavas. Think of something that's getting close to cat's piss. It's a herbal smell that I get that I don't enjoy on a lot of Tormore. This, it does have it a wee bit, but it's in check. This is not too sharp on the nose either. The ABV, 50%. It's only two and a bit points more than the official release. But it's much younger, 16 years on the official versus this one being 11. And it tells us the cask on this. This is from a refill sherry hogshead. It's actually from a vatting of, or a marriage, let's say, of two refill sherry hogsheads. January 2011 to July 2022. Let's have a wee go. Excellent. Excellent. It's ridiculous that those notes that I don't enjoy can be in this, but they're in a way that is just that's excellent. That's excellent. A long finish here. This doesn't taste like sherry. Don't let this if you're put off by this refill ex sherry. The refill is key here. This is plays much more like ex bourbon cask maturation. It's much quieter. You need to sit a long time with this to pick up much in the way of sherry notes. I think it's fruity, fruity, fruity whiskey. Think of green banana here. We've got green banana. We've got a lot of lychee and white grape, that kind of thing. Fruitier, warmer than the Aultmore that we had earlier. Mm. Sweet grape, sweet currants, resin. So not resin, raisins. Soft spice, very quiet spice, not peppery or orange oil, orange rind, orange oil, citrus. This is very good whiskey. Suddenly, very good whiskey. Now, I paid quite a bit more for this. This was pricier. This is from an indie, and the prices of indies are climbing like everything else right now. And it's with the cask investment crap that's going on right now. It's only going to get worse. For me, this is worth two bottles of some of this nonsense, maybe even more. I would take this every single time over this, and this is 5 years older than this. They're priced about the same. If you were to buy this today, they would be about the same price, somewhere in the order of I think about £70 I paid for this. Do I have the receipt for that here in my receipts? Yeah, it looks like I possibly do. Actually, this was a very good price. This 11-year-old 50% Tormore was £61.50. £61.50. That's excellent. So, what's my point to this? Why did I pick Tormore? I picked Tormore because it's going to be interesting to see how it changes with the new ownership. But I picked Tormore also because when we go to these official releases here, the reason I'm ignoring them is because of how the official releases represent that distillery. When you go and you explore with indies, I didn't have any intelligence on what this was going to be. This was either going to back up the fact that I don't really love this distillery, or it was going to reinforce the fact that we need to keep exploring, we need to keep our mind open, and we need to keep talking to each other as a community and talking about what we find. This is a good thing, especially for £60. The citrus is becoming more prominent. Satsuma, sweet, wee bit orange cordial. It's going orangey. The fruit's moved. This is going to be a nice one to sit with. Now I'm talking about something there's only 550 bottles of this here. I completely understand a lot of you guys are not going to get this, but this augurs well for the future. I hope that Elixir do a better job with the releases from Tormore than that Chivas Ferro Ricard have done so far, because this indie of 2 casks refill sherry shows me that I can't write off the entire production from a distillery based on what the official releases represent. I think that's the theme. The Aberlour tonight, the Aberfeldy certainly tonight. Once it gets past that point of maturation and it makes it into bottling, somebody's deciding that this is a representation of the distillery. I think Aberfeldy, Aberlour, and this official 16-year-old Tormore all let things down a wee bit. I've gone through various stages with this. There's a bit in the middle where I decided I quite liked it, but I quickly fell off again. Generally speaking, I haven't had a great relationship with this whiskey, this distillery, and it's made me back off a bit. So many people talk positively about it, but this is where they're getting the positive feedback. The Indies, Elixir, please do well, because right now, Tormore is an ignored distillery for me. Okay, there will be a quiz at the end tonight. How are we doing on time? An hour and 50 in. I fear that we may be going a wee bit late and we might not make that a midnight cut-off, but I'll do my very, very best. If anybody really wants to have us go one extra whiskey, the reason I want to talk about Clydeside is you can see why this is ignored. There's only 2 drams out of this, if that, 1 dram. Now, I've tried it a few times. I've tried it at tastings. It was available everywhere, all over the place, all the time. This is my own personal bottle, and it's dusty too. There's dust on this. It's been left, and that's a shame. It's my closest distillery. It's my most local distillery. But I went by there today, and I had a wee look and a poke around. And it wasn't today. It was not today. Or was it today? I don't even remember. The days are all just running into each other. And I found something there. I found that they're actually starting to play a little bit. And this is a pour your own. This is a January 2023 bottled, obviously. 22nd of June distilled, 2018. For me, for Aquavitae, fantastic. I went in and bought it. The ABV is 61.1% ABV, but that Dechar Rechar cask drew me to this. I tend to quite enjoy some things that come from that type. Come on, camera, there you go. She asked me what message I wanted written on it, and I couldn't come up with anything better than just writing Aquavitae. It's a bit cheesy, isn't it? But this is interesting. What is very interesting is that she also gave me a wee jar of whiskey to take away with me so that I didn't need to open the bottle, which was interesting. I want to talk about this because this is a positive thing, and I need a clean glass. Why is this a positive thing? I think that we are all being abused a wee bit at distillery visitor centres right now. If you go into a distillery visitor centre and you get a chance to bottle your own whiskey, you have to pay a lot for it. And it's not got a lot to do with the specification of the cask or the age. It's not, it tends to be about just what they can charge and what they know people will pay. And I think that we're often paying far too much for it. This Dechar Rechar cask from Clydeside, it's 61.1% ABV, cask number 898. Bottle number, there seem to be bottling their or putting serial numbers, but I'm bottle 146. £65. £65. Think about single cask releases from new distilleries. Think about the way that we're charging for whiskies right now. This is fantastic. This is good value. The idea that they give us a wee sample as well, just nice service, just a nice, warm, welcoming feeling. It was Lizzie, by the way, at Clydeside today. Hi, Lizzie. I know a couple of folk at Clydeside. I know Anna and Roisin. All it has to be is be good. Now, we're getting close. We've got a 4.5-year-old product here. June 2018 to January 2023. 4.5 years old. This is getting a wee bit more mature. So it's potentially more mature than their official Stop Cross release. Have I been ignoring Clydeside while I go and flirt with Rassie and Ardmore, Lochlee, Kingsbarns, Lindors, all the other new exciting distilleries? Have I been ignoring my local distillery? This is still very spirity. 4.5 years old. Dechar Rechar I thought would have a lot more cask impact there, but it's still spirity. There's a clear youth to this whiskey, even at this 4.5 year point now. 61.1% ABV. It's there. The ABV is there, but it's not ridiculous. It's not. It's not smelling hot. It's not nosing particularly hot. But there's not a lot jumping out on the nose. It's just a wee jar, a wee sample. Hmm. Warming, thicker, much more viscous than anticipated. Some heat, white pepper, clean, sweet, light honey. Ah, slightly resinous, green note. Tomato vine, something like that. Can't really pinpoint it. I'll go on again. Okay, gooseberry, sweet gooseberry, green. That green note is like a gooseberry. It's definitely, this is green whiskey. Lightly spiced, much cleaner. The cask is here in the palate. We've got a nice kind of lick of like a white chocolate or a sweet caramel or something. This bottle will get opened. This bottle will get opened. It's nice of them to provide me with that wee sample, but this is very encouraging. Where the Stob Cross, I felt now they're way batches in now. There's probably the original Stob Cross I bought it the first day it was launched. That's the bottle I held up there. There's going to be much more mature whiskey. Stob Cross is going to continue to get better and better and better. More new distilleries just have this habit of getting their new whiskey out there as soon as possible. They want you to be able to taste it immediately, don't they? This is excellent. It's young, it's spirity. I want to say this is excellent for young whiskey, but it's just good whiskey. I mean, we're sipping a 4.5 year old whiskey. Texture is much better. 61.1% ABV is helping this a lot. £65 for a distillery, pour your own. It's creamy. It's white chocolate. The green note is there, but it's light. It's fading. This is going to be this is going to be one to enjoy and sit with. This is encouraging. I'm genuinely excited about that. I didn't try it before I bought it because I was driving. It's nice of them to give me the sample, but I guarantee you I'll be opening that bottle and sharing it. I might even take it away for a Burns dinner on Saturday night. Extra whiskey, please, says one glassman. Good to see you in Warner, and I did it for you. Jimmy Legacy, saying only one of us here is in a hurry to go. His initials are RD. I'm not in a hurry to go. I hope that I'm not giving that impression. Um, I like hanging out here with you. Who did you meet at the distillery? Graham, I met Lizzie. Did I mention that? It was Lizzie that looked after me today. No Rolex is saying, go on as long as you can, Aquavite. I'm an insomniac. Thanks, no Rolex. It's a pleasure to have you here as always. David is saying the message should be second chances. Well, we've given everything at least a second chance tonight. And sometimes the message should be beyond that, I would say, David. I would say that it's sometimes you have to give it for Tormore. For me, it's fifth and sixth chances. For Aberfeldy, similar. Aberlour, I've got a probably 1 in 3 hit rate with Aberlour of things that I've enjoyed. Aultmore is great. Aultmore is a recommendation. I think Aultmore is just the good one tonight. It's the one that stands out as just a clear, obvious thing. And Ardmore, weave the price into the equation, and suddenly it's something that you might want to look at. Clydeside, I need to probably just pony up and buy a recent batch of the Stob Cross. I've got this here, and this is open, and I appreciate this is probably going to hang around for quite a while. Maybe need to try it again and see how it is. Maybe not tonight though. I'm very happy that the pour your own is reasonable, well priced, good quality. interesting, encouraging, and exciting for the future of what they're doing there. That's a nice thing. Graham Fraser saying yes, visited Clydeside and got that bottle signed by the distillery manager. Clydeside, a great example for a visitor centre. I have to see you walk in there. It's welcoming, beautiful, aesthetically beautiful thing to look at with the old architecture fusion with the new architecture. The glass still house. You walk inside, it's a welcoming space. They don't just sell Clydeside; they sell lots of stuff. Great cafe. You can sit and have a decent coffee. It's a good visitor experience and a great tour and welcoming staff. The fact that they're in Glasgow, just outside the city centre, and they are charging the correct price for a bottle your own, 65 pounds, I think. What did I say? 65, yes. That augurs well. Thank you, Clydeside Distillery, for keeping us honest. Catering for the whiskey tourist rather than enthusiast, Aquavitae. I think they do a good job of balancing the two. Some of the whiskies they have in there in their wee shop, there are bargains in there. I'll let you look for yourself. Gordon Fraser is saying, wasn't sure about the Stob Hill, Stob Cross, but time and patience will reward, I'm sure of it, Aquavitae. And we need to let the product get a bit more mature and start to get into its stride a wee bit. Look at Morven, from Wolfburn, or anything from Wolfburn, honestly. Look at the Glasgow distillery when they released Young and Early, and it was a bit sharp and harsh and jaggy and just a bit youthful. We can start to see that things are improving there, they're getting better. We just need to stick with it. And Justin Wan is saying, thanks for bringing this up. Can't wait to drop by the distillery when I come over. It's definitely a good wee visit, good wee excursion, a very short taxi ride, and it's quite easy to get out there. For a notification to say that they're having trouble streaming on Facebook. But you're all here in YouTube, so hopefully that's okay. I don't know what to do. It's asking me to edit. I'll have to deal with that later. Mike Molasses, good to see you, Mike. I'm feeling so rushed as I sit here with a cat on my lap surrounded by drams. What a picture. Fantastic. Gordon Fraser is correcting himself. Stop cross, absolutely. Absolutely stop cross. And Graham Fraser is saying, I tried the first Clydesdale self-fill at Whiskey Fringe and was pleasantly surprised. Shared a bottle at the Glasgow Whiskey Club where it was well received. Good. I'm glad that it's not a one-off, and when that cask disappears, again, just for posterity's sake, it's 898. The one I got a sample of today is cask 898. New distilleries. It's going to be so exciting in the future. So exciting as these things mature. Okay, so I've done a decent job. In summary, Aberfeldy need to work a wee bit harder. We need something natural from you, please. Something with a bit more oomph, something a bit less neutered, something that's a bit more representative of the whiskey that we know that you make. Let's see how I have managed to do with my own blend with this Aberfeldy. I put some very potent 59.8% ABV single cask Aberfeldy in here to spice things up a bit. It's quite quiet in the nose still. I've hardly got Stephanie McLeod quaking in her boots, right? I've made something that I think is a wee bit more interesting than the generic neutered Aberfeldy 12. But I don't think I've made a great whiskey. I'm going to leave it a wee bit longer and come back to it. I think it's a layer cake that I've got going on there. I can clearly taste the two different drams. Let's see if I've done any better with the Ardmore experiment. I've put in some whiskey sponge Ardmore, 1997 whiskey sponge Ardmore as well, some really quite precious liquid, along with the standard non-age statement Ardmore. So I've rendered this wee blend in my glass, a very young whiskey. Oh my, it's the one I smell is the sponge. It smells like I'm standing in a barn and amongst livestock in a barn. But there's peat smoke in the air. I'm looking for fruit. I'm looking for floral. I'm looking for something else, but I'm getting mm, buyer. I'm just getting livestock. I'm just getting farm. Okay, that's very nice. That's very, very nice. Very enjoyable. But I put it to you that what's happened there is that eh, very, very distinctive, very unique sponge cask, which I can't recommend because it's ridiculously highly priced whiskey. It's like a one-off type purchase for me. That has brought so much interest to that wee bottle of Ardmore that it's just yeah. But the Ardmore has also sweetened, um, the kind of funky farmyard, stinky side of the sponge release. That's quite interesting. That's very interesting. Listen, I'm not recommending that you do this with Aberfeldy, like I said earlier, or Ardmore. Don't buy bottles and think you can mix at home. But if you have bottles, mix them at home. Make blended malts. Make blends. Or mix single malts like I've done tonight, 2 Aberfeldies, different age, different spec, everything else, but it makes a single malt still. Mix it in a glass, see how you got on. If you feel confident, if you've got 2 bottles that are otherwise gonna be ignored, mix them up. Put a wee custom label on it, share it with friends. Play with your whiskey, don't be precious about it, especially when you feel it's something that might become one of the ignored. Graham Fraser is saying the Aberfeldy distillery cask at cask strength is always a highlight from a visit. So why can't we have it? Do I need to go all the way up to Perthshire to buy that, Graham, to enjoy what Aberfeldy make? Because what makes it out there into the wild, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 21-year-old, 25-year-old, all of it is neutered. It's abused. That's not representative of what they make. We know that. Just give us 1 or 2 releases that could be a bit closer to that. I speak to you from the perspective of the whiskey geek. I know. Donner Pass Whiskey is saying, good to see you, Timmy. Saying, Boone having 12, 75%. Ardbeg Ugaral, 25% is my favourite Isla peated sherry blend. I was talking to somebody recently, actually. Yeah, I think it was Tom Allen. He was talking about making trying to recreate the old Port Ellen style and things like that, and how you can do it. But listen, just think about your whiskey, think about the flavour profiles, and think about where you want to end up. You're not trying to be a Stephanie McLeod, a Rachel Barry, a David Stewart, a Michael Henry. You're not trying to be that. You're just trying to be you. Make a whiskey that you like. Consider the flavour profiles that you have on your shelf at home, especially if it's things that you don't really, really love and you're not precious about. Play with it and mix it up a wee bit. You're going to be surprised what you can make. But it does take time. It's not always easy to mix it instantly. It can just give you a snapshot, a glimpse. But sometimes when you leave it a wee while, especially in these kind of reasonably sized wee distiller sample bottles, you can make things that are really good, and that encourages you to go in and scale it up a little bit on a larger scale. It's honestly good fun. I understand that the OCD starts to trigger for some of you. I know it does for me, depending on what it is. Sometimes you just want to have the single malt in the bottle as a single malt. But you will get to a point that you'll have whiskies on your shelf that you're quite happy to sacrifice for a bit of fun and try your hand at a wee bit of home blending. A multi-haggis muncher is saying 97 GM Ardmore in the house. I class it as my precious, also delicious stuff. This is a 1987 Ardmore. I did pay a lot for it. This is it's delicious in a very unique way. This is a challenging whiskey, I have to be honest, Matthew. It'd be interesting. Maybe you should bring your wee precious down here and we'll do a wee trade if you're passing through Glasgow, buddy. See what we can come up with. Fantastic. Hope I've not missed anything, but we're ready to roll into the quiz at the end. Yes, I'm slipping past midnight. I'm sorry I've failed a wee bit, but at least we'll get a chance to say happy birthday to Graham Brown if he's still around. I have made a quiz at the end. There is a theme like last week. The first quiz of 2023 had a theme. You might remember that it was World Whiskies last week. I'm sure it was. This week there's a theme as well, but I'm not going to reveal the theme because, of course, it might help you answer some of the early, easier questions. But as time goes on, the theme will become obvious. And then we're into the harder and harder questions towards the end. And we finish off with an ass hat. Remember, it's always multiple choice. You're only playing against yourself. And remember, you only need to reveal your score if you really, really want to. But if you do even just want to hang in the background and play from a distance, you might find there's a wee bit of fun in here. And even the awful questions, I hope that people still learn something or pick up something interesting from. Let's pull in the quiz. Seems to have dropped it, so I need to add it again. That's no problem. It only takes a second. Still over 250 of you, and thank you so much for your support tonight. Well over actually over 400 at some points tonight. It's terrific to have your company, terrific to have your support. If you have been enjoying tonight as well, please leave a wee thumbs up. If you're picking this up on the replay, you're amazing. Thank you. Please also consider leaving a wee thumbs up as well. It goes a long way to reassuring everybody that the vPub is genuinely committed towards helping everybody try and enjoy whiskey a wee bit more. Justin Mann is saying we should invite Ralphie to do a quiz for us someday. Imagine how brutal that would be. Aye, Ralphie hosted quiz. Quite incredible. I have to take my hat off to Ralphie. The Christmas vPub that we had that he dropped in for. The agreement was that he just dropped in and kind of said what he had to say, and then he could take his leave. But he said, "No, I'll stay at the end." And he stayed. He did. He stayed to the end, and he participated in the blind challenge. He did everything. He just rolled his sleeves up and get mucked right. And fair play to our Ralphie. Fantastic. Okay, everybody. Good luck. Here's the quiz at the end. Question 1. Start off nice and easy. Which of these malts, founded by Tommy and John Dewar in 1896, is still most likely to be found in Dewar's white label even today? A. Aberfeldy, B. Aberlour, or C. Aberargie, or Aberargie? Which of these malts, founded by Tommy and John Dewar in 1896, is still most likely to be found in Dewar's today? A. Aberfeldy, B. Aberlour, or C. Aberargie? Aberargie. Absolutely, you've kicked out the park. You know, I've mentioned it already. It's still owned by Dewar's, but it did spend a bit of time under the ownership of what is now we would know as Diageo, but it was DCL. But it is, of course, Aberfeldy. John and Tommy Dewar founded Aberfeldy way back in 1896, and it was all about that Dewar's white label. Question 2. Inverleven, Pittiveich, and Ben Wyvis were malt distilleries, each built on the same site as a grain distillery, which is in common with A. Inchdearney, B. Ilsabay, C. Dalmunnock. So this is quite an interesting thing. So you've got a big grain distillery complex there, and all you need to do is bolt on, some elements. You maybe don't need to worry too much about warehousing and lots of logistics and things. But over the years, there's been many malt distilleries bolted on to the side of other malt distilleries and grain distilleries, such as Inverleven, Pittiveich, Ben Wyvis. But that's in common with which of these distilleries that are in production right now? A. Inchdearney, B. Ilsabay, or C. Dalmunnock, all 21st century distilleries. And absolutely all of you have got this nailed as well. Well done, everyone. Absolutely, we're talking about Ilsabay, which is a malt distillery, a big malt distillery inside the not insubstantial, pretty gargantuan Girvan Grain Complex down in Ayrshire. Question 3. Which of these recently revived producing distilleries has a strong historical connection with Johnnie Walker? A. Annandale, B. Ben Wyvis, or C. Port Ellen? Which of these recently revived producing distilleries has a strong historical connection with Johnnie Walker? A. Annandale, B. Ben Wyvis, C. Port Ellen. Papa Q, good to see you. And Jerry on 2 out of 2, along with Falscraft, Rob Smith, Mike Molasses, Graham Fraser, Tom Elmer, Justin Wan, Orange Wheel, Timir, BMO, Jerry, Multi-Haggis, Muncher, Nicholas, Peterhead, everybody comfortable so far. Good to see. I can tell you, oh, there is some wobbling here. Pete Head, maybe along with Rob Smith and a couple of others, has tripped up in the banana skin. The word producing is in there. Producing distilleries has a historical connection with Johnny Walker. That is why there's a banana skin in there. I'm of course, talking about Annandale. Annandale, if you visit there, they do make mention of their history with Johnny Walker, despite only being open for a very short period of time. It opened in the late 19th century into the early 20th century, but it's now revived as well. What they've done to keep and restore as much of the original buildings as they possibly could. Very, very interesting visit. Anybody driving up the M6 and the M74 from England to Scotland, take the time. If you're going to stop, don't stop at a motorway services. Go and visit the cafe at Annandale instead. What a treat it is. I wish I could evangelise a bit more about their whiskey offering, honestly, but that's unfortunately not an option right now. It remains one of the ignored distilleries for me. But there we go. The answer was A, Annandale. Port Ellen is not a producing distillery yet. That's why there was a banana skin in there. Question 4. Which slightly smoky Indian single malt is used with a mix of Indian and Scottish barley? When I say is used, that's my mistake. I should say uses, or it is made with a mix of Indian and Scottish barley. Terrible, terrible grammar, Roy. Is it A, Paul John edited, B, Indri Trini, or C, Amrut Fusion? Come on. Which of those Indian whiskies, Paul John edited, Indri Trini, Amrut Fusion, uses a mix of Indian unpeated and Scottish peated barley? Whiskey Mystery is in tonight. You got a wee mention, Phil. Look what I enjoyed tonight. I know that I'm on, hopefully the screen's small, but you can see it there. We had Ardmore Legacy. I wonder if you've still got a soft spot for it or if you've moved way beyond it. I made a tremendous wee drama of whiskey here by putting some precious 1997 Ardmore into some of your Legacy. Aye. I'm no blender, but that's tasty. MJ Rodney saying, I'd love to stay for the rest of vQuib, but my 4-week-old daughter has other plans. Just put me down for 10. You got it, MJ. Take 10 all the way to the bank, and I hope you can settle your daughter soon. Whiskey Mister is saying, nice Aquavite, tiny bit left here. Ooh, perhaps not from the original bottle, or is it? Of course, I'm talking about Amrit Fusion. It should be quite obvious. I did mention Paul John Edited has been on the vPub before. Paul John Edited is, I believe, lightly peated. And the Indri Trini, I am loving. You know, as we go forward, World Whiskies exploration, all of that thing, everybody I've poured that Indri for, of course, I'm telling them that it's good as I pour it for them. That is the caveat there. But for £40 or less, that Indri Trini is a fantastic pour of whiskey right now in 2023. But the answer I'm looking for tonight was C, Amrut Fusion. I quite enjoy that too. 50% ABV, a decent whiskey. It's been a while since it's been on the shelf. I should maybe consider getting some of that back again at some point. I can justify it. Here's a picture question. It's not on theme. It's not on the theme. I don't know if you've worked out what the theme of the quiz is so far. Maybe you'll work that out closer to the end. This is a departure from that. We're looking at an image, a distillery scene here, but an indoor scene, not an outdoor scene. And I'm not going to ask you what distillery it's at. Rather, a wee bit of an asshat here. I'm going to ask you what you would walk past as you walked into the visitor centre of this distillery. Would you walk past A, a bandstand, B, a cat statue, or C, a post box? For you Americans that are in, that would be a mailbox. I don't know. Do you call it a post box? Whiskey Mystery saying yes, impressed with that Indri also. Good that you can get it out there on the west coast of the US as well. I hope you're not paying too much for it, Phil. Paul John Bold was our Misty. Oh my goodness. Paul John Bold was our mystery whiskey tonight? I think it's because you've misspelled out. It's throwing me. I'll try one more time. Paul John Bold was our mystery whiskey tonight. Fantastic, Phil. I hope you and Deep are doing very well. It's good to see you. Yep, absolutely. All of you have worked out. We're clearly looking inside the filling store at Glenturret, just off the courtyard at Glenturret. If you've ever visited, you've been allowed to poke your head in here. And if you're at Glenturret, that means that you walk past a cat statue. That is the statue of the famous Towser, Towser the Mouser, the cat at Glenturret. Apparently a Guinness World Record holder. Eh, okay, I'm not sure that cat efficiency is measured for Guinness, but I mean, okay, whatever. But fantastic. Cats were very much part of, if you consider how much barley's on site, big honey pot for mice. Cats were an important part of the distilleries for a long time. Now the grain is held in big safe hoppers, of course. But question 6, which of these distilleries has an official non-age statement core release which is lightly peated? So we're looking for a lightly peated core release. Clearly it's non-age statement, but which of these has that? A, Aultmore, B, Altavania, or C, a Thrusk? Two of the most difficult to pronounce distilleries in there, right? A, Aultmore, B, Altavania, or Altavan, or Altavane, or C, a Thrusk, or a Chroisk, or however you want to pronounce it. What's interesting is a wee passage that I incidentally read out tonight, but didn't mean to. Which of them has a lightly peated NAS core release? Some guessing Markku Mäkinen is in. Guessing B. Gino's celebrating a 5 out of 5. I wonder if it's a team effort as he sat beside his pal Graham Young, or if you're playing competitively against each other. Mike Molasses on 5 as well. Hoyt is saying mice use his face on a dartboard. Talking about Towser there. Dogs of No Uncle. Colin is saying got Aultmore and Ardmore mixed up. B. Ooh. Absolutely. B is the right. Altavania is an official release. This is something that appeared a couple of years ago, 2019, 2018, can't remember now. But it was very much a price point whiskey, which is a shame because here's a distillery we didn't really get a lot from, occasionally from indies and things. And suddenly, I mean, it's used for blends. That's what its purpose is. And then suddenly we get this release, this Altavania release. From Pernod Ricard, 40% ABV, ever so lightly peated. When I first saw this for sale, it was £19. Price point whiskey kind of told a tale. If you're buying it now, it'd maybe be £30 or thereabout, but it does drop on offer when it is in the supermarket. I haven't seen it around recently, but it is a core range and it remains on the list as unignored. As you can see tonight, I've done it. I've had my dalliance with 40% whiskies, and it doesn't excite me to go forward. It's not us being geeks demanding silly things. It's us enjoying flavour and engagement with whiskey. And things like this, like experiences and what I've talked about tonight with Aberfeldy and the Aberlour, even that 14-year-old Aberlour, doesn't make me want to charge out and spend more money on 40% whiskey. But here we have it. Question 7. Find the English distillery which has released a While We Wait style blend called, now I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'll do my best, Tackenbrora. Tackenbrora or Tuckenbrora or Takenbrora, not sure. But they've released a blend called Tackenbrora, and I think it's to do with the Celtic peoples. They're in a location in England that wants to celebrate the Scots and Irish, but they've taken Scotch malt and Irish malt to make a blend. Anyway, what is the name of this distillery? A, Ardgefren, B, Adnams Cooper House, or C, Archie Rose Distilling? These questions should be getting gradually more tricky as the night goes on. But we're looking for an English distillery that's currently got a blend out there, not one that they've made, They are making whiskey now, but none of it's mature enough to be called whiskey. So they've released a blend. It's kind of a common model, isn't it? While we wait, it's called Tacnbrora. Don't know how to pronounce it. Is it A, Ardgefren, B, Adnams Copperhouse, or C, Archie Rose Distilling? Justin Wan is saying, I think I got this one. I was just on the Aultmore website. Better not have missed it. 5 out of 5 for Graham and Gino. Terrific stuff. I wonder if Jimmy Legg has been quiet tonight or if I've just been missing his chat. I usually zoom in and focus on Jimmy's chat. I hope you're well, Jimmy. I can tell you most of you got this absolutely right. It is Ardgefren. Don't know if I'm even pronouncing the name of the distillery properly, but that's a new English distillery there. They don't have their own product, but they've released a blend. It's 42.1% ABV. Unfortunately, it's a wee bit pricey at £42.50 as well. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's in there. I've not tried it. It might be interesting. It's something that I happened across in my readings in the week leading up to tonight's vPub. Question 8. Which of these statements are true about Ardmore? Has anyone noticed the theme tonight? Which of these statements are true about Ardmore? A. Its furnaces and direct firing were removed in 2002. B. It produces a lightly peated malt called Aberlour. Or C. It's the only 19th century Highland distillery to always have produced peated malt. When I say always, what I'm trying to suggest there is that produced it from its founding in the late 19th century up until today. Consistently, continuously produced it. A. Furnaces and direct firing were removed in 2002. B. It produces lightly peated malt called Aberlour. Or C. It's the only late 19th century founded Highland distillery to always have produced, continuously, I should have said, have produced peated malt. Dogs have no uncles say I think it's A. Oh dear. I'm being cruel. I'm being very, very cruel. There is a banana skin in there. There's a banana skin in there. Direct firing was absolutely removed in 2002, but the furnaces were not removed. They are still intact. I mean, the stills sit on top of those very furnaces that sit underneath. It produces a lightly peated malt called Aberlour. No, it produces a malt called Aberlour, which is completely unpeated. It is, in fact, the only remaining lasting Highland distillery that has for its entire life produced peated malt whiskey, which I think is a fascinating stat. Just consider the amount of distilleries that would have been founded and run fully on fossil fuels, certainly, but more often than not, peated. Peat would be the fuel for so many Highland distilleries. So the answer I was looking for there was C. Very tricky one. The direct firing was removed in 2002, but the furnaces were absolutely not. Hence the banana skin being in there. I know you're going to hate me, but I do encourage everybody to read the questions and kind of slow down and pause a wee bit, especially when they see the banana skin or the asshat icon there. There's been far too little talk about Campbelltown tonight. Jimmy, we don't ignore our Campbelltown, do we? We do not ignore it. You might have a point. Molasses is saying, I've been watching Still Game, so I'm learning how to swear like a Scot. Be warned. I recommend everybody watches Still Game. Fabulous, fabulous, heartwarming stuff. Question 9. I hope this is easy. Ardbeg Smoke Trails is what? A travel retail release. B, their recently launched travel club. Or C, their 2023 Ardbeg Day special release. What is Ardbeg Smoke Trails? So I imagine that Molasses Mike, after watching Still Game, is learning how to swear at me in my own language. Second from last, the only one still to go, question 10, is obviously an asshat, so you all really need to get this right. And I think I've thrown in quite an easy one. Anthony Lambert is suggesting a big A in the sky. Absolutely. I can tell you that our big smoke trails is still 46% ABV, non-stated, but otherwise natural. It is a travel retail release. I was curious. I was thinking about picking it up, but I saw the price. I think it was 80 quid. Going from memory, don't quote me on that, but I chose to pass by when I went through the airports recently. So yes, our big smoke trails is in fact a travel retail release from Glenmorangie from Ardbeg. Okay, let's see. Before we go into this hat at the end, oh my goodness, there's lots of good scoring tonight. Lots and lots of 8 out of 9s from Sugar Kitty, Black Fen, Papa Q, Nicholas, Jerry Miller, Tim, Timir, Timir Patel. Timir on an 8 out of 9, great score as well. But look at the 9 out of 9s here as well. Collins on an 8 out of 9. Dogs have no uncles, that is Don McCausland. Good to see you, Don, on 8 out of 9 as well. Orange Wool on 8 out of 9. Good to see you, Rule. Des is on 8 out of 9. Andrew Pear's on 8 out of 9. But look at the 9 out of 9s as well. Quite a few from Helen. Hellswood is on a 9 along with Jimmy Paul. Jimmy, is that the first time I've read out your name ever? It's nice to welcome you in, my friend. Good to have you here. Great scoring as well. Gabriel Wilding also on a 9 along with Graham Fraser. Anyone else managing their 9s? Just as it jumps, I might not have caught it. Justin Wan on a 9 out of 9 saying squeaky bum time. Absolutely, Justin. Good luck for the ass hat at the end. It is an ass hat. I can tell you what the theme is, but I'll leave it till the end. I'll probably forget now. But there was a theme to all the questions tonight, and it does spill through into the ass hat at the end. I don't know if that helps you at all, but Ardgefren is actually England's most northerly distillery. But how many Scotch malt distilleries lie further south than Ardgefren? Is it around the same number as A, work in progress distilleries currently on Shetland, B, deciliters in a standard whiskey bottle, or C, Speyside malt distilleries owned by Pernod Ricard? Is it around the same number as work in progress distilleries currently under in some state of process in Shetland? Is it B, deciliters in a standard whiskey bottle? Standard whiskey bottle, I mean 700 millilitres, European style. Or is it C, Speyside malt distilleries that are owned by Pernod Ricard? Jimmy Legg is saying a lot of A distilleries in this quiz. The theme for tonight's quiz at the end was, in fact, distilleries beginning with the letter A, with the exception of the picture quiz, the picture question, sorry, question 5. All the other questions were absolutely revolving around distilleries beginning with the letter A. You're absolutely right. Let's go for B, says Anthony Lambert, suggesting deciliters in a standard whiskey bottle. C is the theme, says the one Glassman, Speyside malt distilleries owned by Pernod Ricard. Jimmy Legg is going for A, which is work in progress distilleries on Shetland. So Ardgefren is in England, but what I'm asking you is geographical location in England. How many Scotch malt distilleries are further south than the location of that English distillery? This was a shock to me. I can tell you that it is, in fact, 7 distilleries or thereabouts, deciliters in a standard whiskey bottle. So there are obviously 10 centiliters, or 10 cl is a deciliter. So there's 7 of those in a standard whiskey bottle. So somewhere in the order of 7 Scottish malt distilleries are further south than an English distillery. And I'll read out what they are, because there's 1 or 2 that are just on the cusp. But I can tell you it's the Borders, it's Annandale, it's Bladnoch, it's Ailsa Bay. I don't think Lochlee. I think Lochlee is just a nudge north. But Lag looks like it's going to be just a nudge further south than an English distillery, believe it or not. It's crazy. And all 3 Campbelltown distilleries of Glengyle, Glen Scotia, and of course Springbank are also further south than an English distillery, just the way the geography is, the way the border between Scotland and England is split. So who managed a 10 out of 10 tonight? Let's jump in and see. Let's see who managed it. You're all shouting. Where are you? I ruled that out early, says Whiskey with Molly. Wow. The ass hat that's entirely where it's intended to be at the end. Graham Brown is still measuring on an based on 9 out of 9. Are we beyond midnight? We are absolutely beyond midnight. I'm going to raise my wee Ardmore blend and say, Graham Brown, thank you for all your help in 2022, my friend, and already helping me in 2023. But right now, many happy returns. Happy birthday, Graham Brown. Cheers to everybody. Take a moment, please, from celebrating your scores, wherever they are, pass marks or high scores, and raise a wee glass for Graham. This Ardmore is really quite nice. I'm enjoying it. Aris Mose, that looks like. Aris is celebrating a 9 out of 10. Fantastic score alongside birthday boy Graham Brown. Fantastic, Graham. Well done. Tamir Patel is on a 9 out of 10 as well. I'm looking for 10 out of 10. Gabriel, well done. You start. He's managed. He's 10 out of 10. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic, Gabriel. Terrific. Congratulations. Oh, bugger, says Hellswood. So close, 9 out of 10. The ass hat looks like it robbed her. Steve Atkins is saying, oh, damn, 9 out of 10. Looks like the ass hat killed Steve as well. But still a fantastic score. Andrew Hamaker on a 7 out of 10. Excellent score, Roy O'Meara. Good to see you, Roy. 7 out of 10 as well. The one Glassman Warner here. I passed on a 7 out of 10. Terrific stuff. 10 out of 10 for Graham Fraser. Celebrating. Well done, Graham. Gino Kimon, a 9 out of 10 for Graham and Gino. Oh, wow. So the two boys sitting together are celebrating already. And Justin Wan is celebrating with 10 out of 10. Whiskey icons as well. He's really going for it and celebrating. Terrific stuff. Jerry Miller is saying, finally get an ass hat right and still only get a 9 out of 10. And he's crying. How can you cry on a 9 out of 10? But I understand that you're looking for the 10, Jerry. I hope that means you'll keep coming back. Graham Fraser celebrating a 10 out of 10 as well. Terrific, Graham. Well done to you as well, buddy. Superb. Alistair McPhail. Alistair, so good to see you on a 9 out of 10. Banana skinned rather than ass hatted. Oh, dear. Almost there, Alistair. Wonderful to see you. And again, I hope you're keeping well and healthy. Justin is saying research and distilleries recently helped me with that last one. Haha. It's all about the knowledge, isn't it, buddy? Well done. Jimmy Legacy bought me a dram to say at Springbank. To the point of obsession, we do not deviate from the methods and processes which those before us have passed down. David Allen, Springbank. May this be the case forever, Jimmy Legg. I think you're quoting from Dramface there, Jimmy Legg. I seem to remember that passage being written on an article all about the Springbank Funk. What is Springbank Funk? Which is a feature on Dramface. I could be wrong, Jimmy, but buddy, thank you very much for your dram, my friend. And it's wonderful, as always, to have you here. Peter is saying, and with that, I call it a day. Time to hit the sack. Thanks as always for an organising and Aquaviti. And thanks to all you. See you next time, Slanchiva. I'll be here next week, absolutely. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for hanging around. Jimmy Legg saying, you are right, Aquaviti. So that means it is a Dramface passage. And Graham Fraser saying, thanks, Roy. A fascinating vPub tonight. Graham, thank you very, very much for staying and indulging me. Thank you all for hanging out tonight. Listen, these are things that just kind of roll and rattle around in my head. The idea that anybody out there can actually be interested in this stuff is wonderful to me, and I'm very, very grateful for it. I'll be back here next week with more things that rattle around in my head. Let me raise a wee glass at the end to say happy birthday, Graham Brown, to say thank you all for joining and supporting me once more. Thanks to all you dedicated Barflies, beautiful whiskey folk, and you wonderful, wonderful, amazing patrons. You're all very dearly loved. I'll see you next week, and until then, Slanchiva.